think we're live. Can someone in the chat confirm if we're live or not?
Oh, I see something loaded.
Is there a bit of a delay?
There is a little bit of a delay. Okay, so welcome to the Stormkeep. My name is Paul, Lord Podcastellant, and I'm joined by my co-storm host.
Live storm host, no less. How's it going, chat?
Hey guys, how's it going?
All right, skipping ahead in the slides a bit there. So today we're doing a special live edition, and I want to do live streams more going forward. I feel like they're a better way to just sort thoughts out. There's a lot less preparation time required. We can just here's topics, let's talk about them, and it works out pretty well. For a lot of people, this might actually be like a face reveal, because I think Mrigank and I have been on Warhammer Weekly once, but aside from that, we haven't shown our faces at all. So
yeah. The first few paint tables when I had a working webcam, I was using that on my face. So whoever hung out then, I guess. But other than that, no.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I guess people can dox us and toilet paper our houses because we have bad opinions about Stormcast.
I mean, toilet paper won't be the worst thing that could happen to my area, so.
So what's on the docket for this live stream? We've got both of you guys went to tournaments over the last couple of weeks. You took two lists that we are all very excited about talking about. It's a lot of abouts. Then we're going to talk about the future of the channel, where we want to go with battle reports. We want to talk about the Stormdrake changes that happened a week and a half ago, something like that. And then we want to talk about, and that kind of rolls naturally into a conversation about the whole AOS Winter 2021 update, what we hope to see, and what we will probably get instead.
Excited.
Yeah. So feel free to ask questions in the chat. Hold on, I want to test something since we're live. I'm going to push a button here. I wonder if that worked.
What are you trying to do?
I pushed a button, and I think it's supposed to do something. I don't know if it happened, so I'm sure the chat will tell us if it happened. All right, so let's go into talking about tournaments. So let's start with Mrigank. You were running the Annihilana Grande list at the Austin Open GT. So run us through this list. Why did you want to take this list? Because we've talked about this list before. We had a version of it that had a Palisade that was meant as tech for Lumineth, but you went with a slightly different thing.
Yes. So I know we discussed some. So first of all, I love Annihilators. When I saw the profile on the Meteor Grand Hammers, I'm like, this is what I want to run. It seemed like the Timmy in me really wanted to sort of recreate the old 40 Sequitur Deep Strike list that I was running back in 2nd edition for when I first started playing Age of Sigmar with Gavril Sherhart. I was like, okay, this comes really close to that. And Annihilators is just so good, and Raptors are just ace. And then I thought, okay, let's make a list with that and run it. I know we discussed some secret tech for handling Lumineth Foxes, but going there, I was after running some matchups against one of my friends who plays Lumineth, and then another friend who plays Aigna Deepkin. I was like, I'll take the risk of facing that matchup. I'm not too worried about it because that matchup loses hard to Gargants, and Gargants are just so prevalent no matter which tournament you go, that I think any Lumineth player is going to be taking a significant risk. And so it was sort of a calculated decision I made, having the 3 instead of the 1 times 6 and 1 times 3, and then taking a Prismatic Palisade. I just chose the 3 times 3.
For people who don't know, because we're throwing a lot of jargon out there, what exactly are the Lumineth Foxes, and why are Stormcast so concerned about them? And you mentioned Gargants are not, so maybe mention why Gargants don't care about them.
Oh, sure, yeah, you're right. So basically, the Lumineth Fox list is a backdrop of Sentinels and Wardens, maybe some Huracan Windchargers, and backed up by at least 3 Foxes. So Severeth, and then the 2 generic Foxes that can take an artifact. Sometimes even 4 Foxes. I have seen 4 Fox lists. What makes them really dangerous is, even though we are a Scions list and we can, kill something with one of them, or maybe even 2 with Raptors, they have just insane amounts of movement, and they move every shooting phase, including yours. So there's no way you can feasibly catch them in melee, even after deep striking, because they'll just move 12 inches away, and good luck charging that.
All right. 1 second. We got our first super chat ever. Thanks, Spezia Poet. I think I pronounced that right. That's interesting. I wasn't expecting to get anything. Cool. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, and what makes them really dangerous is our main force in this list are the Annihilators and the Raptors. And Lumineth Foxes will never get caught by Annihilators. We can hope to maybe drop 3 of them at one time and get really lucky on the 3 up D3 more wounds. But it's not like a reliable strategy against them. So what's likely to happen in that matchup is you'll drop your Raptors, kill 1 Fox, and if you don't win the double, then the game is just over because they'll just kill your Raptors. Your Annihilators will never catch up to them, and they can just dismantle you over the course of 2 turns because they have access to really good random mortal wounds, and you're a really elite army that has no protection from mortal wounds. So that matchup makes that matchup like difficult, or at least an uphill battle, I would say. The reason that match loses to Gargants is because Gargants are now so insanely good because they have like 3 or 4 artifacts across our army. They're stacking Mystic Shields, they're stacking reroll saves, they're doing Finest Hour. That list basically does not have the DPS check to kill Gargants, the 4 Mega Gargant list reliably enough to where they can score objectives. And if you face them on a battle plan like Apex Predator, where it's about the heroes, yeah, good luck. Gargants are auto-winning that match against them.
Yeah, the Gargants are really, really durable. They just have a ton of wounds, and the 3 Fox list is not the highest damage output list right now. So I think that list
is very much a scalpel. It's not a hammer, and so you need hammers to beat Gargants.
Nekorith super chat for £10 says, not expecting anything. Have some more then. Okay. Sure. We will use this only to buy Knight Relictors and Vanquishers, I promise.
Vigilors too.
Vigilors are actually good.
You're gonna fill up this bookcase behind me with Relictors, okay?
Actually, I just bought another Relictor. I had one, and I want to paint up a new one.
Double Lord Relictor might actually be good. We'll talk about it in the winter update.
Yeah. We'll talk about it, but so I am considering it. But anyway, so this list, I took this list. I also split up the Annihilators. I know it makes my Mega Gargant match weaker, because we did talk about how 6 Annihilators, 1 unit of 6 Annihilators is just so good with 19 attacks of just like annihilating 35 wounds worth of a Mega Gargant. But the reason I did that is because I was hoping to go for the 1-2 punch with Raptors and Annihilators. I felt like that was enough damage to take down Mega Gargants. And I was extremely wary of failing the 7-inch charge with that 6 block. Because if that happens and they're just caught out in the open, 480 points, that's like bye-bye.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons where I like that name that I proposed to rename it Lucky Sevens or 777, something like that, because that feels like what you're doing with that list is trying to just roll 7s.
Yeah, and I also I quite like the tactic, like the smaller footprint that lets me deep strike in like extremely like small places behind enemy lines.
Yeah, people are used to
came up a lot.
People are used to screening like big blocks of dudes. Like, I got to worry about 15 witches, or not witches, sorry. Blood Sisters teleporting, or Stalkers. I always forget the bow ones. Yeah. I got to worry about them teleporting.
Like Heartrenders,
Yeah.
5 Kinerai, yeah.
And given the new cohesion in 3rd edition, it's really hard to actually find space on the board to put 15, but to put 3 dudes on 40 mil bases is really easy, and they can just sneak
especially
in.
If you like triangle them up like that, there's just such a small footprint, and it came up so much because, especially against my 2 Illuminate Realm Lord matchups, they could never screen me out like across the board while also taking objectives. Like I always found like a small spot where the Annihilators would just go poop, and then I just charge them 7. Yeah, it's beautiful. So I think Min Squad is the way to run them. This might change meta dependent. We don't know what the winner FAQ will bring, what it'll do to Gargants.
Yeah.
I mean, if Gargants like take a beating from the winner FAQ, the 3-3 stays, in my opinion.
It's going to be
really good.
It's going to be good, yeah. And we've talked about a variation of this list that adds in a little bit more shooting in exchange for dropping some of the Grand Hammers in order to sort out the matchups against Seraphon in particular, the adding some crossbow Judicators, and I think we talked about a Knight Judicator as well with a Mirror Shield just as an anti-shooting tech. What I really like about that combo is he's a shooting unit that can't be shot, and any teleport shooting just can't affect him at all. And he comes with 2 disposable dogs, which are nice as a screen and zone blockers and all that stuff. So, and
if something teleports, the Knight Judicator will shoot him.
Yeah, and anything else around him.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So Tim, quick overview of how your matchups went. No spoilers. But what were your matchups and how'd you do in each one?
So my first matchup was against a Lumineth Renlord list running 20 Sentinels, Ballistas, Wardens, and a Dawn Rider. Sorry, not Dawn Riders, the Regent and Techless. That matchup, like the main strategy was ignore everything he's doing except unbind the 5-up ward with by any means that you can.
Yeah.
In that particular matchup, he actually screened Techless kind of well. So I shot everything from my Raptors into the Sentinels, demolished them to like 4 models, made this insane 11-inch charge on my Annihilators. And I snaked past his Ballistas into Techless and brought him to 6 wounds. And then he got the turn, couldn't kill the Annihilators because he had to, because at that point they were going to kill his entire army if he let them live, which let my Raptors shoot another turn with Thunderbolt Volley, well, twice actually. And that was basically game over.
Yeah.
Like because once you let the Raptors Thunderbolt Volley after I've done that to you and have 2 more Annihilator units in reserve, it's pretty much game over.
So was he playing a 1-drop list? Because mostly Lumineth are, but you mentioned he had Ballistas, so probably not.
Yeah, no. He was running the Ballista Battery Battalion and the Battle Regiment.
Okay.
I believe.
Okay. Makes sense.
I think he had Light of Eltharion and 2 Ballistas in that Ballista Battery, whatever it's called. I can't remember what it's called.
That's not really the meta Lumineth list. That Lumineth typically are Battle Regiment, Techless, 30 Sentinels, and there's variations on that here and there, but that's the core of it, right?
Yep. That came in my 4th round. So after the second day.
Well, let's talk about your round 2 first. Let's go chronologically.
Yeah, sure.
So we don't get lost.
My round 2 was actually against my very good friend from St. Louis, and it sucked because I really didn't want to face him day 1, and he basically had a Disciples of Tzeentch list with Be'lakor in it. He had Kairos Be'lakor, 10 pinks, 6 Zangor on discs, 2 units of 3 Screamers, and a couple of like Tzeentch flying heroes. I think the name is Fatecaster. The matchup there was pretty simple, but he knows my list and he knows that he basically has very little chance against it. So what he did was turn 1, the only thing that was in range was the Knight Incanter, and it was the Apex Predator match. So I put everything in the corner away from even his like Spell Portal range. But I did keep the Knight Incanter up front, but he used Bellacor's Dark Master to lock down my Unbinds. And then he killed my Knight Incanter. But it didn't end up mattering because ultimately the goal was to not let anything else be hurt. And then that let me Raptor his Kairos down, to like 4 wounds, bring down my Annihilators. He changes the dice to a 1 on the charge, so they didn't make their charge. But then I got the double, and then it was just game over after.
Hold on, run me through something here. How did he use Bellacor's Dark Master to stop you from unbinding? Because Dark Master activates at the start of your hero phase, and it lasts until the start of his hero phase. So when he's casting spells, it's already over.
Is it? I think he can do it start of a hero phase. That's what he told me. I didn't really question him on it, but let me.
We should double check that. You know what? I'll double check it. You can. So how'd that matchup go? Do you think that would have been harder if he was Legion of the First Prince instead of Tzeentch? Like, why did he go Tzeentch with Be'lakor?
Definitely. Yeah, I think. Oh God, that 5-up ward save is. Yeah, I think he just simply didn't have enough models, and he already had a Disciples of Tzeentch army that he wanted to run. I think using Be'lakor was a last-minute decision for him. I was like, you might as well run just like Legion of the First Prince because it's just better.
Which we will be talking about, and we'll get to it.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it is the enemy hero phase. So I guess he didn't play that way.
Yeah, because I remember noting that in a video that we're working on that came up as a relevant point, that you can't use it to stop unbinding, even though it says you can use it to stop unbinding. Which whatever.
Interesting. Enemy hero phase. Okay then. Okay. Wow. Well. Okay. It didn't matter because I won. But hey, that's good. Good. Yeah, I would have missed that in other matchups. To tell you how much of a pro I am, how did I miss that? But anyway. So yeah, that matchup was over. The third matchup I faced that day was a Soulbright Gravelord list, running the Virkos Dynasty. He was running Belladama, the Coven Throne, Prince Wardry, 2 units of 10 Direwolves, 20 Skeletons, 20 Graveguard, a Necromancer. And this matchup was basically he was hoping to cast Spell Portal, do a bunch of the wolf damage spells that turn my things into wolves. So I deploy everything way back. He gives me the first turn. I translocate, shoot the Rappers into Wardry, bring him down. Shooting phase. I kill the Coven Throne, bring Annihilators down, kill his Direwolves, and it was just he just didn't have the damage after that to deal with me. The best
Yep.
thing he had in his list were the 20 Graveguard and Belladama, and there was no way 20 Graveguard were going to make it to me because I had Aether Wings deployed basically near everywhere his grave sites were.
Yeah, I don't have that much experience playing against Soulblight yet because of their new book. I just don't know any Soulblight players in the area, unfortunately. Well, maybe James, you know some. You've been playing around here a lot more than I have lately. But it seems like the kind of army where if you can alpha strike their heroes, the whole thing just falls apart.
Yeah, it is so hero dependent, and he didn't have any of the powerful hitting units other than Graveguard. Like I thought I'd be facing some Blood Knights, but I never did. And Direwolves, you know, they're fine. They're 2 wounds each, but they're not exactly. They don't have any melee power. I think Liberators could.
They don't have any rend, right? Like they just bounce off us.
They don't. Yeah. So it's like, okay, even if like they charge me, I would have Liberators just tanking them for days. So. So once you take out, his main hitting power was his Wardry and the 20 Graveguard, and I guess in some ways Belladama can also hit a little bit, but you know, once you take out his main hammers, he can't win.
Go ahead,
James. Belladama, I don't find her that great, quite honestly. I faced her a couple times, and Squad of Vindictors could tie her pretty easily from what I've seen.
Yeah, she's a great support hero. I think Radukar is a better choice there because he just does so much for Soulblight. The +1 attack, command ability, and then being able to run and charge. And he's actually he's a house in melee. So I was surprised to not see Radukar, the beast there.
Radukar for namesake is a beast.
MS Paul in the chat, you're saying Raptors are going to get a price hike? Maybe. We'll talk about it later in the stream.
Yeah, that's coming, MS Paul. You'll just wait and see. And then, day 2, this was the Illuminate list. This was what you're talking about, Paul. This was the meta Illuminate list. It was a 1-drop. The only hero in there was Techless. He had 50 Sentinels. Yeah, one group of 30, one group of 20.
Oh, I see. He's got the extra 20 Sentinels. Because usually there's some other heroes in there. For a while, people were running the Lore Master because of his shenanigans. And then people also have like secondary wizards in order to get really good casts. Sometimes they run the Endless Spells too. There's a lot of variations on it. But yeah, 30 plus 20 is rough.
Yeah, he was running. I think he was running Spell Portal. I think he was. And then he was running 3 groups of 10 Wardens, 2 groups of 10 Wardens and a Dawn Rider unit. And that list was extremely straightforward. He has to go first against my list because otherwise the Raptors just beat him down. So he tries to get the 5 ward spell off. I auto unbind it. Using the Incanter, everything else is in the corner. The Incanter is like right up in his face, as close as they can get to his territory, the opponent's territory. And then he tries to go for the 5 ward again, and I don't know why, something in my brain went, I don't think you can do both in the same turn. And so he has to check his book because it says you can't cast Protection of Techless and Protection of Hish in the same.
That's right.
So I remind him of that, and he did like a bunch of like teleporting and like spell casting after I auto unbound. So I was like gracious enough to be like, I know you made these decisions with the information that you thought you had a ward at 5 ward. So if you'd like to like redo or take any of this back, I'll let you do it. And he essentially had become like really aggressive with his like army, thinking he had a 5 ward. And I'm like, if you need to take any of that back, I'll let you do it. And he's like, no, it's fine, I'll do it. And so he like shoots my Night Incanter off, which she's done her job, so I don't care. My turn, I essentially bring Techless down to I think 5. I want to say like 8 wounds left, or in the hero face shooting, I bring him down to 6 wounds left. And then I bring down my Prosecutors and Annihilators behind him. Prosecutors make the 3d6 charge for a 10-inch charge, and he has to use Unleash Hell to try and kill them. As the Prosecutors die, they do, I think, 3 mortal wounds to Techless using Blaze of Glory.
Hey, there you go.
which is like insanely lucky dice. And then the Annihilator's charge made like a 9-inch charge into Techless. Impact hits, just kill Techless, just removed him off the board. And then I 3-inch piled in. So I got a total of like 12 inches of movement into the Sentinels. And I basically killed all but like 3 from the 30-man block.
Nice.
It goes to the double turn. I get the double, and the game is over.
Yeah.
Like, I just Thunderbolt volley his 20 Sentinels, shoot his whatever remaining Sentinels are. Annihilators are still alive. I drop another down. The game's over.
Yeah, it's such because they have to go first in order to get their ward off, and they really want to teleport and try to do some damage, but what are they going to kill if everything we have is in Scions, right? So that matchup is heavily favored for this list and most Stormcast lists I think that people are bringing to tournaments. I see us being very favored against Lumineth. We seem to be like the Lumineth crushers because on its own, if we just get the double turn, because they have to go first. If they let us go first, they're insane, right? Like they're gonna lose so much. They don't have a ward up. Like Techless is gone, probably the Sentinels too. So they have to let us go. They have to go first. And if they do, they open themselves up to a double. And if that ever happens, they just lose. Like you can't come back from that shooting. So we seem to be heavily favored in that matchup.
The only thing he could have done differently, and we talked about like what he could have done, is Techless has that thing where he does like one spell.
Yes, and if he does that guaranteed teleport, that's the scariest thing that Lumineth can do. But even if he does that,
guaranteed 5-up board.
Even still, like
guaranteed 5-up board.
You can kill him through a 5-up board. I'm more worried about the teleport. But Scions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it's honestly one of the reasons why I kind of want like their shooting and our hero face shooting to be toned down a little, because
I agree.
It just feels like I don't want the match to hinge on a double turn. Like I feel like that's just I don't know. There's something that feels icky to me about that, just in terms of like game design. It's like, oh, I win the double or I don't, and then I just crush my opponent. But anyway, so that's how that matchup went. And then my last match was against Ironjaw's Bloodtooths. It was a Maw Crusher, 2 War Chanters, a Shaman, a Rogue Idol. I want to say 4 groups of 3 Gorgontas, and then 1 Mega Boss on foot. And I think he was running double or battle regiment. So he gives me the first turn, and this matchup was going really poorly from the start. I made a lot of hit in moon rolls, but he just made these saves like crazy, especially like 5-up wards. I think I did like 14 damage to him on the first volley, and he rolled, I think, 9 or 10 5-up wards.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And
dice game.
Dice game. And that's just one volley. The next volley that I shot, I did like, he made pretty much all his 5-up saves, and then I think 4, 5, 6 damage went through, and then he made 3 or 4 of those ward saves. So a total of hero phase and shooting phase shooting, the 3-up Maw Crusher took like 7 wounds, and then he healed them all back. And I was like, okay, this match is not going to go well.
That's rough, man.
Yeah, and then he was just making save rolls like crazy. You know, Mighty Destroyers is just a really, really strong ability. I did make one misplay. I should have deep struck something on his right flank just to hold off the Mighty Destroyers there. And I think it just like that and like a few other things that I'm not going to go into, it tilted me a little.
Yeah. Well,
so
if you had won that,
I could have played it better.
If you had won that matchup, you would have taken first place overall, right?
Yes.
It's crazy to think like just a couple ward rolls between you and first place.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh my God, Mighty Destroyers. I think that model is insane. Like, you don't think about the CP efficiency it brings to the army, but 3 all-out defenses or 3 all-out attacks or 3 free movements. Like we're talking about dragons moving. Good Lord, look at how much Ironjaws moves.
It's not even efficiency, right? It's not even efficiency, because efficiency would be saving you command points for doing something you're going to do already, right? Whereas this is you give 3 units all-out attack, right? Like it's like having a Toralon for 1 command point on a model that is actually really good instead of being a Toralon.
Yeah, yeah. I think we'll talk about it later. I think Maw Crusher is one of those models that definitely deserves to go up in points. And speaking of which, Gorgrunt is like, I had to like double check if they were 150, because they just see that wound efficiency alone, like 4-up save, 5 wounds each, a bunch of attacks on 3s and 3s. I think -2 rend. Like that just seemed insane for like a battle line unit for 150. I mean, you're talking about competing you're talking about competing directly with like Sequitors, like. What do you like? Gorgon is just so much better.
Yeah, they were obviously pointed before they made the errata, and
yes,
it's not going to surprise anyone if they go up in points. So 4-1 overall. I think that's a really good result, man. For the first time using this list, did you have any practice games with it before the event?
2 practice games.
That's not a lot.
Yeah,
that's you can't even go through like the typical like pick 5 lists that you expect to face and do that. So that's that's a good first showing for this list, especially because this is something we came up with like a month ago, 2 months ago, maybe.
I want to say 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks before the
tournament.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good showing. I think this archetype is definitely very strong. I think there's modifications we can make to it. Like we could go Tempest Lords to get a reroll on the prosecutors and bring more of those guys and drop some Aether Wings. Merge the Annihilators into 1 squad of 6. Drop a squad. There's a lot of tinkering. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there's a lot of variations. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really like just the archetype though of just big Raptor shooting core, and then anywhere you need them, you get a whole bunch of Grand Hammers. I think that's really sick.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like you mentioned, it's like a sniper's nest, and then you're just dropping grenades on them, these like ODST orbital drop shock troopers from Halo, just like
I always envision it as a like Ghost from StarCraft deploying tactical nukes. I've always loved that. All right, well, congratulations on your 4-1, and looking forward to seeing the next one.
Mm-hmm. Which is probably going to be LVO, I think, in January. So we'll see how that goes.
James, run us through your very first tournament ever. Our guys growing up right before our eyes.
So my tournament was at a local store where I am, and it honestly just ended up being like a small round robin amongst 4 players at the end of the day. The store didn't really advertise that well, quite frankly, and we had the Hollow Strike list that is pretty popular, just with Fulminators in it this time around. Beast of Chaos list, Cruel Boys, and one of the more experienced Warhammer players ended up bringing a list of just squigs. So it was really just people coming out to have fun at the end of the day. Again, list is pretty standard stuff that we've been talking about on the Discord. We've got our standard staples, Lord Relictor, High Priest, Translocation with Mirror Shield, just avoid getting shot with the Lord Relictor. Torlon in this case, with an Arcane Tome, Scintillating Trail just to help with unbinding rolls, and Celestial Blades as his spell. His role is ultimately just to run behind Fulminators and quite honestly just act as a big buff. Cast Celestial Blades on them, cast Mixed Shield, and give them the Comet Trail, so they're 2s on 2s, saving on 2s as well. Basically, they're going to be deleting anything they go up and in charge against at that point. Battle line slots filled up by 3 squads of Liberators. We've got Gardas for the Ward, and then 6 Raptors for just range prowess at that point and just controlling the board.
I like the Vanguard battalion here. I don't know why I didn't even think of it. I just threw the rest of my guys in the Warlord battalion because you could fit them. I didn't even think to bring a Vanguard battalion. I guess it's kind of a comment on how lackluster core battalions are. Did you ever find the extra command point was worthwhile?
Didn't use it, quite frankly. It was there, but there was no... It wasn't necessary against the list I was playing against. Like, I was never in a huge threat where I needed to initiate that all-out attack or anything like that, quite frankly.
Yeah, run us through the matchups.
I don't think it gives you a CP.
It gives you a free
reroll charge, I think.
Vanguard is AOA, right? A free AOA on the units?
No, Vanguard is reroll charge or reroll run. It's actually really bad. Yeah, because Vanguard is it's the Swift ability. Swift once per battle, at the double, or forward to victory without the command point being spent.
Okay.
Yeah, for one reason or another, I thought somebody had put it in my mind that was just a free command point that could be spent, but...
Yeah, no, it's for Raptors. I don't know if it's relevant, but yeah.
No, absolutely not. Like, I remember when I was first playing third edition that I ran a Vanguard battalion with Dracolines just to get that sort of swift kick on them.
Mm-hmm.
I like this. I like the Vanguard battalion. I got to consider it more on our list because a free guaranteed run 6 once per game is really good for Stormcast. We're so slow. Yeah. Liberators going 11.
On this list, I want to actually drop the Warlord battalion because what I want to do is the command entourage and the Vanguard, actually. I feel like, or something like that. I feel like would be more useful.
Yeah. But yeah, matchups wise. So my first round was against Squigs. We were playing the battle plan where there's 4 objectives, 2 in neutral territory and 1 in each home territory, and you score 1 point for your home territory, 2 point for neutrals, and then 4 point for enemy home territory. And quite honestly, I just played the castle, stood back, and then as the Squigs came closer, just shot them off the board. Fulminators tried to contest 1 objective the whole time. Went up against some Manglers.
Here's the thing. He's playing Warhammer, and you're playing Starship Troopers.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, so he actually sent all 3 of his monsters, because he had 2 Mangler Squigs and a Colossal Squig at the Fulminators, and the Fulminators were still happy. They did what they were supposed to do. Actually had to end up translocating the Raptors to the corner of the field where that pilot was happening, just to support them a little bit. But the way the terrain was set up, I actually ended up doing a bit of a flub where the Raptors were out of line of sight to the home objective, but in line of sight to the neutral objective I was defending there. Which kind of boned me at the end of the day, because his Trogs were actually advancing on my home objective, leaving my screens and my heroes there just to defend that.
Mm-hmm.
And needless to say, the Trogs took care of the Liberators.
Yeah,
that being said, yeah. That being said, though, Raptors were able to sort of fall back a little bit and get line of sight again, and then get rid of the Trogs. And at that point, there was a little bit of a I was falling behind on points, but luckily enough, Knight and Cat was just kicking around, so I just translocated it to the home objective on the opponent's territory, because they just left it unoccupied.
Yep, that's how you do it.
Yep.
The photo you sent of the Raptors behind a wall, and you're like, this is after I translocated. I'm just like, big think emoji.
Yeah. Like I said, that was a big mistake on my part. Mostly because I didn't think to actually translocate into the terrain, because I thought it was closed off. But it was just open, so I could have just, in theory, just stood at the tower there. But again, first match of the tournament, I wasn't thinking that straight.
Yeah. Well, you took home a win, so good job.
Yeah. Second round was against the Cruel Boys at that point, and that was on Power Struggle, so that's the one where you score points after controlling the objective for 2 consecutive turns.
Yes.
Now, at the time, the tournament we were playing, that the person, in order to score any points, the person would have to control the objective for 2 consecutive turns. Paul corrected me, and it's actually anybody who's controlled it for 2 consecutive turns can get the points off that one.
Yeah, that's right. So if you, because you check control at the end of your turn, so if at the end of your turn you control it, and then the enemy takes it from you, and then at the end of your next turn you control it again, you can score points off it, because you just have to hold it for 2 of your consecutive turns, not 2 consecutive turns, period.
Yeah. But yeah, again, this one was just the defensive Hollow Strike Castle deployment up against a lot of shooting, so a lot of bolt boys, ballistas, even a Gargant and the Vulture. So it was my first time seeing the Vulture in play. He was playing Gobsprax, the magic one. Lots of casting on that one, but luckily enough, there was enough unbinds on my side that I could just take care of him and not have to worry about any sort of offensive magic there. And yeah, I was pretty quick to take care of his shooting. That was sort of oppressing me, and it allowed me to open up and sort of punch back at that point. Because I had fallen behind a little early, and I didn't see the point, or I wasn't seeing a path to win the game at that point, I just sort of took the personal, I don't want to say moral challenge, but I was just there to slay monsters at the end of the day, get some points doing that. So focus fire on Gargant, focus fire on the Vulture, and eventually ended up picking away at it.
Yeah, that's always the risk with castle lists, is that if you don't have a rapid redeployment out of it, which Hollow Strike does kind of struggle with right now because we're such a slow list. The Fulminators, the Taurolon, Translocate help, but it is still ultimately a slow list full of foot-slogging soldiers, and you can fall behind, and your enemy just racks up points and gets ahead of you, and you can have trouble catching up to them. So I think if you had scored that one the way you're supposed to score it, maybe it would have gone in your favor.
Yeah, easily, because I was sitting on 3 objectives by the end of it, or by the middle of the game. So
okay,
yeah.
But still,
my butt.
I think you made the right target priority. Killing their shooting is what you got to do. Anything that can threaten your shooting has to die. As soon as you control all of the shooting in the game, you will win over the next few rounds, as long as it didn't take you too long to kill all their shooting.
Yeah, the path to victory becomes a lot easier once their shooting's gone.
Yeah. I've been talking to one of the TOs for a tournament I'm going to be at next weekend, and he's telling me about a list that he was telling me about a list that was being run that's going to be run next weekend, and I don't know if he was trying to psych me out or anything like that, but I just sort of he was going about cruel bow shooting being amazing, and I was like, it's good, but it's still outclassed at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's the issue with it. Sentinels and Raptors exist.
Yeah, quite honestly, Stormcast in particular, our solution is just to outrange them at the end of the day.
Yep.
Bolt
I think the
boys
best
at the
thing they can
24
do is the cover and mud dirty trick, and like essentially it turns the whatever terrain piece they're in into like a gun turret, like a static gun turret, because the moment they pop out, we're gonna kill them.
Yeah, but isn't the dirty trick random though?
No, they can select a dirty trick before every game. Like they can customize it, and they can they have to roll they roll 3 dice, and on a 4-up they get to select 1 unit and cover it in mud. And if they place it in terrain, then you can't see it.
Yeah, it's on a 4-up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
If you're relying on a coin flip to win, you know, like you got to have a plan B, and I don't think Cruel Boys have a plan B right now.
Nope.
Yeah. Again, they have really good shooting with really good damage output, but 24-inch range versus 30-inch range.
36.
It's easy to counteract that one. 36, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can move and
they
shoot.
can't move, which is amazing.
I got to ask a question. How did you find the ballista? I haven't seen one on the table yet. Was it really scary? Was it trying to shoot down your Torlon all game?
No, it actually ended up shooting out one of my fulminators, so that was a bit of an annoyance, but I did actually manage to rally back a fulminator, so...
That's the most salt you can possibly generate in a game is reviving Dracoths. That's so nasty.
I'd say Stormdrake Guard, man. Take 4 Stormdrake Guard and revive 1.
I think your opponent is just going to constantly tie down your Stormdrakes, but like, yeah, Dracoths do so much more damage. It's so disheartening to have one of those come back to life. Yeah.
Again, once I cleared out that lane of shooting, at that point it became fair game. Fulminators were just taking up that lane and eating up whatever was in that territory. So
I have to ask another question, because I've always stated that Hallow Strike and variants of it throughout the past are not simple lists to play, and you're I don't mean to insult you when I say this, but I think you're a beginner tournament player. So how did you find it? From your experience, how difficult was this list for you to play? Do you think that there were a lot of small mistakes that you were making? Do you see yourself like cleaning the stuff up and getting better at it? Yeah.
I think I'm at a point where I'm seeing seeing what mistakes I'm making as they happen, but I'm allowing them. Or at the end of the day, like I just want to play through it and just let those mistakes happen and just learn from them.
Yeah, it's not a pick up and play list or play style. Castles are not intuitive in how you're supposed to handle them.
Yeah, and especially the thing that's really intimidating for me is just getting to the point where you're kind of putting yourself at a disadvantage with you're going to let the opponent gain an early lead, and then you have to claw back.
Mm-hmm. The clawback part is what people usually struggle with. It took me a while to really figure it out. You have to plan like 3 turns ahead. Like, yeah, he's going to kill this unit, and I'm going to kill that unit. So what am I going to do, on round 4 to take objectives? You have to think that far ahead. Otherwise, you're going to give up objectives too early. You're going to lose key units.
And honestly, in hindsight, like that's something I could apply even to like my list. Like the urge to immediately Thunderbolt volley something the minute you get the chance is so tempting. Like against my final Armjaws match, I could see another line of play where I just destroy all of his Gorgrunters and then not even worry about the Maw Crusher and Rogue Idol, because at best they can take 2 objectives, right? And if I kill everything else in his army, then that matchup maybe would have gone different. Maybe I, instead of trying to force myself through these 5-up ward saves, but then, yeah, that mentality of having patience and thinking about multiple lines of play when you have access to like 24 shots at -2 Ren 2 damage. Yeah, it's that does create some like interesting like decision making. Yeah. Like there's a lot of learning to be had when playing lists like that.
Yeah. I'll see where I'm at after next weekend, because quite frankly, I'm expecting to get tabled and probably go on 3.
Well, if you face Jordan in the first round, man, that's going to be a good learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I'm just having fun at the end of the day. So
tell me about your third matchup. I think this is a player you played against before. You mentioned.
Yeah, I was playing up against Beast of Chaos, and actually, I played a practice game against this guy on the Monday prior. Same list, and the game quite honestly played out the same way. It was just a war of attrition for him, quite frankly.
No. Did
I
he
don't.
have?
It was.
Did he have anything that could threaten your long strikes, like Beastman? Not the Beastman. What are they called? Zangors on discs with the bows. Did he have those?
Nope. No, it was all foot soldiers, melee units. He brought 3, I think they're called Gorgons, the big bull dudes with the blades.
Yeah. So not the guy carrying the rock, the nerd crusher. They're talking about the guy who just tries to slap you to death.
Yeah.
The one with the 5-up save.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one with the 5-up save against my 2 end. So he was quite honestly having not the greatest time the whole time, and I was feeling bad for him throughout the game, quite frankly, but I can't say much about that.
Yep.
We were playing Tectonic Interference. I was just focusing on 2 objectives while he held one objective on the far side for the longest time. And then it was just war of attrition on the other 2 objectives. He would bring units up against my fulminators. They would quickly, or not necessarily quickly, but like slowly just get tied down, and then he'd lose models. He tried to even summon another Gorgon to go up against the long strikes. Just summon it on my side of the table and charge in. Long strikes were very easily able to bracket it down with a spell. That's another thing I want to comment on is that Raptors really powerful at bracketing monsters. Happened with the Raptors, and I bracketed down to the lowest.
Pretty good.
Are you guys timing out, or is that me on my end?
Yeah, everything.
Okay. Are we good? Can you guys hear me?
Everything's fine. Yep.
Okay. Must be on my end then. All right, weird. You ended up winning 2 games and losing 1, but how'd you place overall at the event?
Placed first in the seed at the end of the day. So I ended up taking that one home.
Sweet. How was the seeding determined? Was it based off like grand strategies or number of battle tactics, total victory points? Like what pushed you? Because then somebody else would have gone 2-1 as well. So how did you get in first overall?
It was victory points. I scored nice points, so 69, and the guy.
Yeah, I think at the Austin Open it was wins, then points, and then like they were counting how many battle tactics you achieved each game and whether or not you achieve your grand strategy. Like it would affect.
I think that's a fine way to do it because it encourages more strategic play besides just winning by 1 single point, but it also isn't like I'm going to table my opponent and stop them from scoring points. Yeah, and 3-5 because in order of achieving battle tactics. Destruction is just really good at achieving whatever current battle tactics we have. All the battle tactics are kind of suited to how they play. So yeah, well, we'll see. Maybe that'll change in the update. Okay, let us go into the future of the podcast section. So we've been talking about battle reports for a while. I want to discuss with you guys and with the chat and anybody watching this afterwards what exactly we want to do with battle reports. So we view them as an extension of the podcast. We want to use them to discuss the concepts that we talk about on the podcast in a video format, actually showing it play out as we talk about it. And I want to break that down into 2 different types. The first one I want to talk about is like a competitive pitched battle. So this would be a little bit more edited. It would have either like a narrator or a shoutcaster talking about things like a really experienced player, maybe like somebody like myself, would watch the video of these two players, determine how they're deploying, talk about, oh, this is why they're doing it this way. This unit does this sort of thing, and that's what the other player's watching out for. Or maybe they're trying to pull off some crazy combo. They're opening up options. So a really experienced player going through and discussing that sort of thing. There would be a lot of editing done to these videos. So for example, if key moments like Imperitance land, you would show, you wouldn't just have like an overhead shot looking down on it. You'd actually get close up showing where the Imperitance are going. You'd have like a clutch dice roll to create some drama. If they make it, if they don't make it, the result of their combat. You could have like unit stats could pop up on the screen, because I feel like one of the things that makes tournament games really unapproachable for people is that they don't understand what the units do, right? If you look at it like people watching a sport like football, it's easy to figure out more or less what's going on. It's not that hard to figure out. Like I'd say soccer is even like European football is even the simplest explanation here. Is like everybody can understand how to kick a ball. You get it through the net. That's the goal. But if you look at playing a tabletop game, it's really, really difficult to know what's going on unless you're really experienced with what's going on. I make the analogy to watching StarCraft 2. If people like watching StarCraft 2 tournaments, it's because they understand everything and they can appreciate all the decision making that's going into play. And then having a narrator on top of that kind of guides you through that process. So you don't have to be a pro player to understand it, but you have to have some level of understanding. You can't show somebody a StarCraft 2 or League of Legends match and expect them to get any kind of enjoyment out of it. So what I want to bring into it is making it more approachable for people who are just getting into Age of Sigmar. Stormcast in particular, because that's what our channel's focused on. But if somebody doesn't understand anything about strategy or anything, yeah, Christopher McLeod, it's like trying to explain rugby to your wife. I want to make it approachable. I want to make people understand what's going on. So a narrator explaining what's going on and unit stats popping up on screen. So let's say we're deploying long strikes and we put them in reserve. The narrator could be like, oh, in this matchup, the player is very concerned about the Sentinels teleporting and then shooting them. So to hedge his bets, he's going to place them in reserve because Teclis has a guaranteed spellcast that can't be dispelled with the Dispel Scroll. And more detailed than that. And as I'm talking about these units, there could be like Lumineth Sentinels pop up in the corner of the screen over here. It'll be like damage, very high, range, very high, durability, medium. Talk about special abilities, the threat ranges and things like that. And then, stuff like that. And like I said, this is going to require a lot more editing. So shout out to Ox King for $5. He says, battle report format sounds great. Thanks for your wise words, boys. You have been a great help to a freshly forged Storm noob. Much love from Sydney. It's crazy how many Australian viewers we get, right? Like that's so weird.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting.
Love you guys in Australia. It's a wild meta down there, and hopefully we can just clinch it and make it all one big happy Sigmar family down there. So about the battle reports, they do require more editing, and I don't think I can put out reasonably more than like one every 1 or 2 months. Like it's we all work full time. This is a hobby we're doing on the side. I want to make these educational videos that are going to showcase tactics and showcase strategy and get you in the head of the players so that you can understand what's going on. And that takes effort, because we still want to keep doing this podcast on the side. It's a lot of fun, and we still want to paint, and we still want to play games, and there's tournaments and stuff. And maybe to facilitate that, we might want to hire an artist who can make overlays. We've got some patron bucks coming in that we can utilize for that purpose. So we might be hiring a meme smith. The second kind of battle report that I would be interested in doing is still pitch battles, because I personally don't have any interest in Path to Glory. I can't ever commit to like 5 weeks at a time or whatever format people usually do. For me, it's like there's a day in a weekend. Okay, that's the day I'm playing Age of Sigmar, and the rest of the month I'm doing whatever. I've got other concerns at this point. So the second type of battle report would be casual pitch battles. So kind of invite people over, showcase wacky stuff or experimental stuff, or just whatever people feel like playing. They could be good players, they could be total newbies. It doesn't really matter. It's still a pitched battle. The focus is still on strategy, but it's to do it through the eyes of a layman, not necessarily a top table 5.0 GT list against another top table 5.0 GT list. That's not the goal there. The goal is just to play Age of Sigmar pitch battle in a more casual setting. So that requires a lot less editing. I don't need it to be as dramatic. I could still do things like the overlays to kind of discuss that sort of thing, but it doesn't need to be as in depth. And players would be bantering throughout it. I think this would be useful as this would be more typical of what you see for battle reports from other creators. Just something easy to do and fun, and just an excuse to play games and record them and put them online for feedback. So, as I mentioned, we do have limitations. We're all full-time employees somewhere. The podcast is a side hobby of a side hobby. Like Warhammer's the main hobby, and then the podcast is the side thing on top of that. So I don't want to overpromise. I don't want to overcommit. Shout out to Sid Sign. I can never pronounce his name. For $10, he says, California says hi. Well, we say hi to California. And that's all I'm going to say about California. I have a lot to say, but I won't say it here.
Yeah, guys, this podcast is really taking away from my painting time. I've been painting every day since the hobby this year.
Yep. James is a painting fiend. Another issue we have, obviously, is Mrigank is a foreigner. He's across the border. He doesn't want to come visit us, so that's kind of making it more difficult to get him here. He did promise us that when we reached 1,000 subscribers, he'd come visit, but
I'm planning, but I'll find some time for some back.
All right, so that's what we want to do with battle reports. I will be posting photos for our patrons because I promised that a while ago. I'll post photos of the space that we renovated. Right now it's kind of set up as hobby tables, but I'll put all the stuff together, put the mat on it, put some terrain. No, Crypt Shadow, I don't have beef with California. California is beautiful. I love it there, but yeah. It's not what this podcast is about. We're the Stormkeep. We're not the California Keep,
Yeah. We got some Sigmarites in California. That's great.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I don't get to play a lot of tournaments. Some peeps out there representatives.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this one, we've had some time to sit on it. So let's talk about the Stormdrake Guard. So the facts, what happened? Stormdrake Guard went from 285 to 340 points, which is a 55-point increase per squad. And the Knight Draconis went from 255 to 300, which is a 45-point increase per squad. So that means if you took the typical package that we've talked about, which wasn't the Oops All Dragons, because that is fun, but the typical package was four Drakes and a Draconis. That package now costs 100. But in our book right now, an extra 155 is really, really hard to find. I'm not sure about you guys, but anytime I'm writing a list and I think about Drakes now, it's like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to have enough battle line to fit that particular combo in there. I have to give up a lot in order to make the Drakes work. So it's a bit rough. And my conclusion, at least, is that unless you're playing an all-dragon list, it's going to be very difficult to use the Knight Draconis. He does hit hard. He hits like if you give him Flaming Weapon with an Arcane Tome, he hits like Celestant Prime on round 2, which is very good. And he does have the double tap breath. He actually hits harder because he has the mount attacks as well. So he's fine. There's nothing wrong with him being 300 points. The problem is that he's necessary to make the Drake's battle line and necessary to make them double breathe. So without that double breath, their damage looks a lot worse. You have to start comparing them to something like, even 6 Evocators. You have to start comparing them to that. And their damage output is not that hot. In fact, the last couple of days in the Discord, I've been running the numbers, and Chariots, the Stormstrike Chariot, 2 of those do more damage than 2 Drakes, and they cost less points. And they have more wounds, and they have -1 to be hit the turn they charge.
I'm glad I bought 2 Chariots out the gate, boys.
You're ready. You're ready for the 4 Chariot meta.
Yep.
Yeah, so before we go into, these are my thoughts on what should have happened instead. Super chat here from Daniel Gomez. Still waiting on the most optimized Krondys list. Oh, that's Reaper time from our Discord. What's up, dude? Yes, I am also waiting on the Krondys list because.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Not at 600, man. I don't know.
It's tough.
I'll try and make some it's just having a 600 point support dragon feels kind of weird because there's things that are in this game. When you get to 600 points, you want to be doing like crazy things, and he's good, but he's not crazy, and that's my problem.
Yeah, 600 is exactly what you said. It's that price point where you're like, okay, I got to start thinking about what am I giving up in order to take this thing, and what am I getting instead? And Karazai is so focused at what he does. Like Karazai just kills everything he hits, right? Maybe like Gargants, he won't kill a Gargant in one turn, but anything with multi-models just dies to his tail. He comes down swinging with 6 Galmaraz attacks off the bat. He is worth building a list around because if you can keep him alive, he will mow through the enemy army. But Krondys he doesn't hit as hard as Karazai, and in exchange, he gets casting, which is fine, right? Normally, but it's only +3 to cast, and his spell requires a 9, so you're still looking for a 6 on the dice, assuming you don't get bracketed. His spell is really good, but I can't really think of like too many threats in the meta where I'm looking to use it, because the best features on it are reducing the rend of enemy weapons, reducing enemy save rolls, and reducing enemy missile weapon attacks by 1. So I can't think of many situations where you really want to use that spell and hope you get it on a 6, because again, it does cast on a 9 and you have +3, so it's not guaranteed by any means. If he could learn every spell in the Stormcast book, he'd be fantastic, because he would give you a ton of variety. But right now, since he only learns the one spell, it's like I'm paying 600 points for a wizard who learns one spell from our book. I can pay 125 points and get a guaranteed dispel on top of that. So it's just really hard to fit Krondys in lists right now. I want to make it work. I'm waiting for the winter update, and then I will definitely make a Krondys list of some kind. I'm thinking my core thoughts are Skink, Starseer, Krondys, Geminids, and crossbows. Lots and lots and lots of crossbows firing at effectively Rend 3. I think that'll kill pretty much everything. Just imagine firing Galmaraz out of your crossbow, and that's the plan.
You just lost Mrigank.
He'll be back. Okay, so it wasn't my connection. Oh, I'm glad to see that at least.
Yeah, no, I saw somebody mention that we timed out earlier, so.
Okay, because I have a thing here saying my bit rate is low. I'll fix that for the next stream, but we'll figure it out from there. So James, what are your thoughts on the Drakes changing? Do you just in general, what do you think about that?
I need to see them play before I can make judgments on that. I do think it's a little extreme, quite frankly, for models that don't exist in reality right now.
Yeah, the way they did it is really what bugs me. Because, like, okay, fine. If you're going to nerf them, it's better to announce the nerf before the models come out. Objectively, right? It's better than people buying the models and then finding out that they were nerfed. It's like, that sucks. So I'm glad they did it this way. But it's kind of like a 1-2 punch on top of the errata to Master the Celestial Menagerie. So they nerfed them before anybody had their hands on the book for 2 months. And then they nerfed them again based on more playtesting, which did they do playtesting or not? Like, it's hard to tell.
I think that playtesting was like 2 dudes going, it's really broken. And like, I get why. Like, people, like, they were spamming Stormdrakes and it was working really well against Gargants and pretty much anything else in the meta because of those D6 mortal wound spikes. And, I totally agree with you. They should have just stopped the spam by either removing battle line status or like doing what you said, where it's like you can only take 1 Stormdrake unit as battle line for each Draconic hero in your army. But even then, you can get like 8 Stormdrakes and 2 Night Draconis in an army. So really, just like remove battle line and put that restriction in. And then suddenly, the only thing you can do is take one. You still have to take the Liberator tax, and you have to take the Draconis and Drakes. But yeah, it's just at a really awkward spot right now. And I feel like even now, people are going to ask for nerfs because they're going to have some feel bad moments when that D6 mortal wound thing hits.
Yeah. There's the.
I'm still open to the theory that it's a conspiracy with supply chain.
It could be. It very well could be. There's the meme going around right now that they just didn't play test at all, and they purposefully underpriced these things because they knew they were going to sell a buttload, and then they were always planning on nerfing them in the winter update because they have to plan this stuff a long time, right? They're not writing this stuff the week before it comes out. The winter update's probably been done since October at least, right? It could be even further back than that because they got to localize this, they got to spell check it, they got to do all this stuff to make sure that it's ready for publishing. So.
Mm-hmm.
There's that meme, I'm going to call it. It's too. I'm not even that cynical that I'm going to believe that, and I'm very cynical, right? So I'm not even going to ascribe to that. My theory on what happened is that they wrote the Stormcast and Ironjaw's books with 3rd edition in mind, right? The new rules and everything. They were playtesting these armies against 2nd edition armies, and against 2nd edition armies, 285 Drakes makes perfect sense because they're just going to explode anyway. It doesn't matter how many wounds they have. It doesn't matter that they have a 3-up save. If you fight 40 Hearthguard Berserkers, you're going to die. Their 285 is totally fine in that paradigm, right? And then they were always going to adjust as needed because they knew it's a new edition, there's new stuff coming out, and maybe they legitimately did do more playtesting after the book came out and found that, okay, 285 wasn't enough, 340 seems like the right value. 340 might not be the right value. There's been rumors about them getting a new War Scroll, so we'll see how that all shakes out.
Yeah, I think the general consensus is they have way too much going for them in terms of movement, shooting, defense for being non-hero models. And like, I kind of want to agree. Like, I feel like, okay, so the raw damage, if you don't consider the shooting, if you consider the shooting as if you're rolling average all the time, the raw damage on the Rider and the Drakes aren't all that good. They're like pretty, like you said, like two chariots are actually better at that now. It's all front loaded on that breath and the ability to bring that breath to just about anyone turn 1, because you can hero phase move, normal move, and then you have 24 inches. It's basically like if the Maw Crusher could move twice and breathe fire on you, except you're doing it with like 4 Drakes, you know. So I think realistically, yeah, if the rumors about them getting a new War Scroll are true, I think that's what they're gonna hit. They're gonna hit the double move.
I hope not.
They've repeatedly shown us they don't want us moving fast. So.
I get that, but I really, really, really like the hero phase move. I think it's such a unique and cool ability that really accents the fact that these are like flying masters of war. I think if they nerf anything, I'm going to start going through my list of what they should have done here. The breath is stupid. D6 mortal wounds as a shooting attack on a multi-model unit is so stupid. I can't even fathom why they thought that was a good idea. Mrigank, you've been playing this game long enough to know the old Storm Fiends, when they could all take Warp Fire throwers, and every Warp Fire thrower did 2d3 mortal wounds. So you would just walk up to something and here you go, 63 mortal wounds. Like, how? That's just not good design, frankly. It's a terrible design. It's not fun to play against. There's very little counterplay against it. If it was a spell, you could unbind it. If it was a command ability, it would have points. No, this is just a shooting attack. You just crazy spike 8d6 mortal wounds sometimes. It's absurd.
I don't know what made them. I don't know why they specifically went through the Drakot War Scroll and changed the 12-inch Storm Breath there to an ability over like a shooting attack, and then they gave the Drakes, the Stormdrake Guard, a shooting attack that you can use and unleash hell. Like, I don't know what they were thinking with that.
Well, you can unleash with the Drakots too, right? It's still a missile weapon.
Not anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, it's still a missile weapon.
Is it?
Yep. Yeah, it says don't use the attack sequence. I think what you may have seen was the when the boxes for Drakots first started coming out, they just had the melee weapons listed. They didn't have the breath attack.
Oh, right.
But the book does have them as a missile weapon.
Yeah, I think that should go.
Yeah.
I think that should go. Like,
just make it D3.
That would be a good
on a 3-up, right? Like Drakots do it on a 4-up, Drakes do it on a 3-up. That makes perfect sense to me. They're slightly better dragons, whatever.
Sure.
And if dragon spam is a problem, right? There's other ways to tackle that besides just obliterating the Knight Draconis as a viable support hero. Because when you have one Knight Draconis, you can make 3 units battle line. And that's a problem because now your whole army is Drakes. You don't have to pay a Liberator tax. Mrigank, again, you're an old enough player to know this. The big thing that was holding back Drakots and I would say Evocators on Dracolines in 2nd edition was that you had to pay the Liberator tax. Yeah, you had to spend like 300 points on these bad units that did nothing but just get in the way and die. And that is enough to hold back a whole list. It doesn't hold back the units. Like Evocators and Dracolines slapped. They killed whatever they hit. It was great. But because you had to spend 300 points on Liberators, they were held in check. Like the whole list wasn't broken. So they could totally do that with Drakes here, right? Either make it so only one unit can ever be battle line, because that is a cool ability to make them battle line, because you can double reinforce them. That's neat. And I like neat things. Or you can make it so that for each Draconith hero or Stardrake, you can bring a unit as battle line. And all of those cost a buttload of points. The 2 big dragons are 600 each. Stardrakes are what's a Drake Sworn? 435, and then Celestin is 500. So that's a big enough tax as it is, and I think that would be fine personally.
Well, the thing is, like, if we consider Draconic spam, the Drake spam, what it was previously doing was 2 Knight Draconis and all the Stormdrake Guard you can mash in, and all that list has lost is 2 Drakes.
Yeah.
So it's actually, they haven't stopped the spam. They've just, like, sort of eased, like, soothed people's, like, you know, like, they've put a bomb on it and said, okay, hey, maybe this will feel better.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, you're still facing 10 dragons that are going to be double moving, shooting twice, you know, doing their Unleash Hell shenanigans.
Yeah.
So they haven't really done anything to stop the spam. The easiest way would have been to just, like, remove that battle line status from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 2 extra Drakes you lose doesn't impact that list that much because you ran out of space in melee. So it's like
the thing is, when you're talking about tabling people on turn 1, turn 2, do you care if your 2 Drakes rest less? I don't think so.
No, you're going to get all your guys in melee anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it all shakes out in the winter FAQ. I'm very curious to see. I don't think 340 is unfair for this unit and what they do. I don't like the way they did it, and I don't like that we were given this information without the full context of the winter update, because if they, well, this segues very nicely into our next point, but if they go through and they nerf everybody else and leave us relatively unharmed, we're looking in a good spot.
Mm-hmm.
So they recently announced that they're going to be doing an update every 3 months. So we're going to get one in the winter here in December, and presumably we'll get another one 3 months from now. So it'll be March, maybe early April if they're backlogged, and that feels pretty quick. For me, I'm fine. Like, I've got all of the Stormcast, so if they change the points, I can make a new list like that, and it doesn't bother me. But if you're getting into the hobby, if you're trying to figure out, what should I prioritize with my limited funds? What kind of list do I want to play? What do I want to build? There's all these time sinks and money sinks that are involved in this hobby. And it feels like with a 3-month update schedule, people are just going to get turned off from playing pitched battles. Because if the list you build is suddenly invalidated 3 months later, like, that just sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like that frequency. What I would like to see instead is that they would actually do good updates. Like, maybe if we actually have a winter FAQ this year, that would be nice. We didn't have one last year, so.
I mean, I don't know. I think so. I see what you're saying, but I also see, like, the other flip coin side of it, because so I also play a bit of 40k, and it's like, if you're one of the orc players who is spamming like 12 buggies or 15 buggies, like, I have, like, very little sympathy for you, because it was pretty apparent how busted that was, and I was like, there's no way they weren't going to address it. Or if you were like an AdMech player and you were spamming, I don't know, like 6 to 9 flyers in a game. So, like, the only thing I would say is, yeah, it sucks when your lists get tweaked and, you know, you built this really cool list and you can't play it anymore. But in general, it means that players are going to abstain from, like, spamming something that's, like, really, really good, or, like, making something that's, like, obviously busted, or, like, investing heavily into that. If you're just, like, an all-round, like, I just collect Stormcast to collect Stormcast, I think you'll be fine. I just think, like, if you're going for that extreme skew list that just, like, blows people out of the water and there's no response to it, and you're like, well, I get to play this for 6 months before they nerf it, well, you just have a shorter time window now, in my opinion.
Well, even within the same army, like what Neko's saying in the chat here, he says, getting into the hobby was a nightmare for me initially before I fully committed, as I went all in on evocators and sequitors before finding out a new edition was less than a month away. Like, that's a new edition. You can't do anything about that. But picture you're getting a new edition worth of rule and point changes every 3 months. It's not going to be that drastic. But it just, like, it's just not good. Like, let's say you dabble in an army. Let's say you get, like, you want to build a list. Let's say you want to play 2,000 points of Caradron, and you have it in a particular way, and then you find out, oh, the points changed. Now I need to add a new unit, or I need to take away a unit and swap something out. Like, that's just not a good feeling to happen every 3 months. It's hard to get really invested in that sort of thing. Now, as a tournament player, I really, really like more consistent changes, because when stuff is busted, I want it changed right away. I don't want to wait, you know?
Yeah.
And it just sucks. Like, I don't know which one is better overall. In a perfect world, they wouldn't release stuff that needs change, this degree of changes. Like, they couldn't foresee the buggy situation in 40k or Dark Eldar or any of this stuff. Like, they can't see that 30 Lumineth Sentinels are going to be the most busted thing that's ever seen in the game. Like, they can't foresee this stuff. Like, it's weird. So in a perfect world, it wouldn't happen at all.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, it's like when something like the Drakes, like we had the book for like a hot month before they were like, oh yeah, we need to get to fixing this before they actually come out. So like that gives me a bit of hope. Where it's like if it's something that's like obviously busted, like there will be signs of it either in the community or like you'll find out. The other thing is they did say like they're not going for like drastic changes across the board unless it's like a really problematic unit.
I'm hoping it's more errata. I'm hoping it's more errata than point changes. I don't think units.
Yeah, exactly. Like
some units are obviously too cheap.
Yeah, it's like if Sentinels are too cheap, like, but it's if they lost their line of sight thing, the Hawk or whatever, the Scryhawk Lantern. Yeah, like that suddenly like makes them an alright unit. It's like, yeah, they can shoot 30, but then you can hide from it,
Now I'm not a Lumineth player.
Points.
I'm not a Lumineth player, but I get the impression that Sentinels are kind of carrying the entire faction on their back, and if they were to increase their point cost, it would open up room for new things, new lists.
They also need to like change other, like I think that that tome, I don't know, maybe it's like the High Elf syndrome, but it's overly complicated. It's like it's got way too many rules going on, and on top of that, Sentinels are like one of the only viable playstyles because the Stone Temple and the other Wind Temple or whatever, they just like do a lot of like cute things, but they don't actually like do the thing that needs to be doing in order to win the game. It's weird.
My brother is starting Lumineth. He's just getting into the hobby. Lumineth is what he picked because he wants to be a jerk. He says he wants to ruin people's gameplay. He wants the most complicated army to play right off the bat. So Lumineth it is. Hopefully the winter FAQ makes them. They're not going to like totally rewrite the battle tome, but things like, well, let's get into it. Let's talk about what we hope to see with the armies, right? So we'll start with Lumineth. I'm hoping that the Foxes lose their ability to retreat in the enemy shooting phase. I think that kind of movement shenanigan breaks the game in a bad way. It's uninteractive. If you're playing a pure melee army, you just cannot win against them unless you're Gargants, in which case you win through the sheer size of your army, which it's creating an arms race at that point. Like every army has to be big enough to just handle taking the shots from them all game long. It's just a bad design. And I've said that a few too many times. I don't want to like make it my catchphrase, but yeah, I hope that goes away. Lumineth, I'm hoping that they lose the line of sight ignoring ability on Sentinels, and I'm hoping their points go up a little bit. Alternatively, they could just make them single and a unit of, or not single, sorry, units of 5 instead of units of 10. If they made them units of 5 and kept their points the same, it drastically reduces the power of force multipliers on them, right? It makes, there's pros and cons to that. But I think losing the line of sight thing is key. On smaller boards, it's really easy to just sit in a corner and just whatever you want to hit, you can hit. There's no interactivity from your opponent. So those two things is what I'm hoping to see axed in Lumineth. How about you guys?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jay. Oh, I think, line of sight would be a big one. I think they should just lose battle line status. Like, I don't think they should be like comparable to Judicators because they only do like maybe go up 20 and lose battle lines with the Wardens, and suddenly like you lose like 10, 20 Sentinels in your list.
Losing battle lines really interesting. I like that idea.
Right now, they have you can take a Sentinel battle line. I think they should just not be. I think that would go a bit towards fixing Sentinels in the game, and I think Wardens should come down. I think Lumineth Warden, the Spearmen come down, their Stone Mountain or whatever they have should come down. Yeah, I think it should push more towards, and because those units are good, they just don't see play because Sentinels are just.
They nerf Foxes. I think the next unit people are going to immediately complain about is the Kangaroos because of their unique combat phase movement. People are really, really going to be frustrated with that unit. But at least you get to hit them first. They don't strike first, which is the saving grace. So if you charge them, you can kill them.
Yeah.
So, James, have you had any games against Lumineth yet?
Probably first game's gonna be next Sunday, so
probably. I like
also Aether Courts will just go. It's such a bad mechanic.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much bookkeeping. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Just make it like a once per game. Your whole army does this thing. They all eat the Aether Courts at the same time. Who cares?
Yeah, and most of the time it's basically like a free Mystic Shield on them. That's what they do.
That stacks with all-out defense and Mystic Shield.
So, yep, yeah, that's what that. But yeah, enough about Lumineth. What do we want to see for Legion First Prince?
I don't mind Be'lakor. I don't think he's that problematic. I think his Dark Master ability is very powerful and fun as a player and an opponent. I think it's a fun ability to play around. But Pink Horrors, man, Pink Horrors have got to change, because that is absurd that you get 50 wounds for 215 points, is it? That's so stupid. Good lord. Who thought that was a good idea? And the fact that
so you could get like 150 wounds for like 600 something,
and they get a 5-up ward in that army. Just another thing that needs to change is the Khorne Demon Prince Bloodslick Ground, the ability that halves your charge rolls, because in a world with redeployment, that ability is bonkers good. Before redeployment, that ability was fine. It was totally flavorful and balanced. This is another issue like Lumineth Foxes. It just crushes melee armies too hard, and especially when you have Kairos who can determine your charge roll, so you can change a 6 to a 1 and then that gets half. Like it just stops players from interacting with each other, and I don't like that in a game. I think players should be killing stuff. They should be playing against each other. One of the big draws for 3rd edition in general is increased player activity during your opponent's turn, and then you get some units like Bloodslick Ground Demon Prince who just no interacting with me. Sorry, you don't get to fight me. Which is pretty silly.
Yeah, open points, if I'm being honest. Like, Demon Prince is really, really cheap right now, from what I remember correctly.
Yeah, 3-up save, 8 wounds, so he gets cover and lookout, sir. Flying. He's got a good stat line for his points, but really it's all about that command ability.
Yeah, in that the model's cost needs to like represent what it can do, because I think it's just really powerful.
I think in this case a targeted errata of the ability is a better way to go, because if you just raise the points, then you're nerfing Nurgle and Slaanesh and Tzeentch versions of the Demon Prince who don't deserve it. I think they're fine for that point cost. I don't see them being a problem.
Yeah,
it's just the Khorne version.
I was like, Kairos could probably go up.
Kairos could probably go up, yeah.
Justin. Because they do that now. They point models differently in different armies.
Yeah, they could do that.
So, like,
now, does Legion of the First Prince have its own pitch battle profile table, or is it part of Slaves to Darkness still?
I think I don't think it has its own pitch battle.
Because Be'lakor is part of Slaves to Darkness, right?
Yeah, it is.
So you pretty much pick Be'lakor. I think that army needs a faction table. That's the starting point with how you change that army. Is you give it its own points, right? Like Pink Horrors, let's say they're fine at 215. I don't think they are, but let's say they are. But let's say if you had separate points for them, you can put them in a Legion army and assume they're going to get a 5-up ward and then cost them appropriately for that. They definitely need to do that. Legion of the First Prince needs its own army table.
Yeah, I think that's all there. I would say, like, just raise the points on them, because the 5-up ward is going to be insanely good in increasing their durability.
Mm-hmm. You're lagging, but you're coming in and out a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about Stormcast. What do we want to see for Stormcast? First, we'll talk about what we want to see, and then we'll talk about what we will probably see. They're both lagging out again.
What it? Oh, okay.
Oh, you're back. Okay. James?
Across the board is just sort of shooting something that is right now. Not just necessarily nerfing or fixing Sentinels, but also adjusting your Raptors, adjusting Bow Snake to make it really difficult for your opponent to play around if they're just a melee focused army.
Yeah, long range shooting is a problem in this game. Really powerful long range shooting, I should say. Like, nobody's complaining about Celestar ballistas, right? Nobody's complaining about Lumineth ballistas. The units we're complaining about are long strikes, Daughters of Cain bow snakes because they can double tap. We're talking about sentinels. We're talking about I don't even know what. It seems like those three are the big ones. They're not fun to play against.
Bolt boys now too.
Yeah, bolt boys are creeping up there for sure. And if they nerf long strikes, Judicators are going to become another problem unit. They're only Ren 1, mind you, so it's not as bad. And they're only 24-inch range. But this powerful long-range shooting, I think, is a result of the game being so fast and deadly. Right? Everything can teleport. Everything can turn one charge. So you need this super long-range shooting so you can deploy far back and deal with it. Like, it's an arms race, and they got to cut it off at the knees. They got to gimp long-range shooting not across the board. Some units don't deserve it. Ballistas are fine. They didn't do nothing wrong. But they need to change these oppressive units that people don't like playing against. And at the same time, they also need to get rid of like a majority of the armies that can do turn one charges. Yeah, find armies where it's thematically appropriate to do a turn one charge, like maybe Slanesh. I could see them doing it because they're super fast. Maybe Ironjaws once per game can do it because they are very fighty. They want to get in, get stuck in. But across the board, mobility is whack right now. It's so hard to play anything except shooting or really, really durable melee like Legion of the First Prince. So what I would like to see for Stormcast is two main things. One, Paladin units, Paladin keyword units, can move after being translocated. I think that would be super cool. And these units are currently really struggling in order to get anywhere. And redeploy exists, so it's not like there's no counterplay. Like if you translocate a Paladin unit and it moves 4 inches and your opponent redeploys 6, you're going to feel like an idiot. So, yeah. Then there's counterplay to that. You can use Geminids to stop them from using command abilities. You can there's things, but it's Protectors, Decimators, and Retributors are suffering right now, and Grand Hammers have to take a very expensive tax that makes you start spamming Grand Hammers, which could become a problem. So I would like to see Paladin units move after translocation. And I'll let you guys go ahead before I say the second thing.
I don't know if they'll do that because that's the War Scroll. What I just really like to see is just like point. Like I don't want to see the points for they probably deserve to. Be Unleash Thy Hatred, but for just the car units. Because I feel like hero face shooting should just not be in this game. It's just like shooting is Marathi or like us do Thunderbolt Volley just like creates a lot of like feel bad moments. There's times where I just won the game off Thunderbolt.
Yeah, just
I don't know.
Alpha strikes in general are too strong. Shooting and melee alpha strikes are too prevalent and too strong.
So I think like changing that to like Unleash Thy Hatred, but for Justicar units, I think is a good change. And it's the same because here's the points on Raptors: 270 or 260 for plus 20 or plus 30 on for 6 wounds is just like and we'll still take them because they're good.
Yep.
But
what I just think of terrain rules like in 40k. Do you think that would help at all, or
it would if Sentinels didn't ignore line of sight? Like I would love really good terrain rules. I think terrain's a big part of the game, and if you don't have good terrain, the game's just kind of boring. Like I don't want to play. I've heard War Machine doesn't even use terrain; they just use like cutouts that they put on the table that represents terrain, because sometimes people would like walk up half an inch and they're super competitive. So no, I want a thematic fun game that's also somewhat immersive. So terrain should be a big part of it. Interacting with terrain should be a big part of it. And as long as Sentinels ignore line of sight, their terrain's just not going to be that relevant in tournaments. So I would love new terrain rules, but gotta change Sentinels first in order to do that.
Yeah. I want to add a side note. I think the terrain at the Austin Open, it's like an open field, really.
Well, that's good for shooting like us, but it's not good for the game in general.
Yeah. play. I feel like terrain shouldn't just be about shooting. Where your melee units can commit, where your big monsters can go, and it should affect decisions like that, but it doesn't.
Part of that is definitely that tournaments don't have unlimited terrain. They have few pieces and they're trying to spread it out. So part of it could be like just an equipment issue. They're just not fully stocked enough to do it.
It's like a GW tournament, so they want to use their terrain. Usually when you go to like a third-party tournament, like I go to one, it's called the game. The tournament organizer there, Jeff, he has a when he plays his terrain. Like he has these impassable pieces that you can't land over. You know, he has these obscuring pieces, and he wants to make those.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Obscuring terrain, impassable terrain, that all sounds good. We need more of that. We need something that can you can put your units next to it and you're not worried about getting charged from a certain angle because you're not dealing like even if the unit can fly, it can't end on the terrain. So you're safe on this wall. You know, I think that would be cool. Let's talk about Gargants. What do you guys hope to see with Gargants?
So the is they are in the game, and I've heard a lot of people go, right, should just be equal to numbers. Can you hear me?
You're lagging out a bit here. Not sure what's going on.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I'm lagging out, but the thing is, like, so Gargs are incentivized to not play the game, and I want them to play the game. But if you just change might makes right to more KG to preserve their OPSEC, I think they need to change. You might make charge or you slay models.
Caught maybe 60% of that. Sorry, man, you're cutting in and out. It might be on my end, and I'm sorry for the technical issues. This is our very first live stream ever. I expected something like this to happen. All right. So you seem to be okay now? No. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Gargants for a second here. I think Gargants have... I like them. I like Gargants being in the meta. I think the issue with Gargants is that the 3rd edition rules just way too heavily favor them. And I think one of the key culprits here is their Finest Hour and Amulet of Destiny. I think those two things existing just make Gargants way, way harder of a matchup than they need to be. Like, it's fine if you have a 35 wound model or whatever for 480 points. That's totally fine. I don't think that's a big issue inherently. I think the issue is when every single one of them, you'll kill one per turn, and the one you're fighting against will have their Finest Hour because they'll position in such a way to do that. And that just makes them more difficult to cut down. Crypt Shadow, yeah, the White Dwarf rules have made them even better because they've clarified how a lot of their abilities work. It gives them battalions that they can use. They're a force, and they are totally a noob crusher army, which makes sense because they walk around stomping on people. Like, thematically, it's appropriate for them to just body people, but it's too much. It's just a little bit too much. They're too prevalent. They're too easy to use, and that's making them extremely popular. They're basically the new Flesh Eater Courts from 2nd edition, where they were just everywhere because 2 Terrorgeists that fight first and fight twice was the stupidest thing. So that's all everybody used, and that's the equivalent of this army. It's super easy to use. You just move it forward, and your dice rolls are so heavily in your favor that you're going to do well enough. So if you guys...
I think you change might makes right. I think you change it to the turn you charge or the turn you slay models, because right now they play the game by not playing it.
I can see that, yeah. They're just too passive.
Because they keep retreating. That's all they do. They move onto an objective and they keep shuffling around it. And that doesn't sound like a very mighty thing to do. So just make it active the turn you charge or the turn you slay models. It makes them play Warhammer.
I can see that, yeah. Because that is one of... It's not thematically appropriate for them to walk on an objective and then walk away, and that's how they win the battle. Like, Gargants are supposed to be messing stuff up. They're not brilliant strategic thinkers. It's fine if they just want to move forward and hit stuff, but their rules should reflect that. Their playstyle should reflect that. Yeah, Gargants, if the rumors are true, then we're looking to see a nerf to the Amulet of Destiny. I think everybody's kind of sick of that thing already. Even if they reduce it to a 6+ ward, it's still going to be used on Gargants. They're still going to take it. What else are they going to take?
I'd rather just be changed for a 5-up mortal wound save, because that's why people take it.
Yeah, that would be cool. I could actually see that.
Like, would that be so bad? Like, it protects you against mortal wounds, so it's still good for like all those 14, 18 wound heroes.
Well, while we're on that train, why not make it like Ignax's Scales, where it's a 4-up against mortals?
I'd be okay with that too. I had no problem with Ignax's Scales. I don't know why they like had to introduce a much more powerful artifact and get rid of that one.
Yeah, that would be sick. Bring back Ignax's Scales. I'm down with that. James, since you didn't play back in 2nd edition, there used to be realm artifacts. You would pick a realm for your army to be from. So you could be from the realm of fire, for example. And if you were from the realm of fire, you would have 12 new artifacts that you could pick for your army. And there were 12 artifacts for every single realm. It was an absurd amount of choice. And it usually just ended up being like 1 or 2 really, 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 really good ones from that realm, and then you just ignore the rest because whatever. But one of them was the Ignax's Scales, I think that's how you pronounce it, and it gave a hero a 4-up mortal wound save, which was awesome on a Stardrake, because you would stack them to a 1+ rerolling 1s and then give them a 4-up against mortals, and what the heck is going to kill that? Because nobody had Ren back then. So I'd be down for that. Daughters of Cain. Are Daughters of Cain like an oppressive force right now, or are there just bigger threats in the meta that we're dealing with? Like, I feel like there's not that many complaints about Daughters of Cain, but they place well. They place very well, and they are a constant threat.
It's because the other stuff is equally as oppressive as them, and Daughters of Cain are, even though I'd say their playstyle is oppressive against all the armies that aren't, like all the B tier armies, it's because they're an extremely one-trick pony that's very aggressive. It's Marathi and 15 snakes.
Yeah.
And that needs to go up in points. Like, snakes, I think, should be around like 15 or 20 points less than Judicators, instead of 30 or 35 or whatever they are now. And I think all their melee stuff actually needs to come down, because unlike our book, they got their new book just at the cusp of 3rd edition, and it didn't actually go up on a rend or anything. So they're actually like a pure weight of dice faction, and all-out defense actually reduces their combat capability by a lot. So I think that stuff, like, Witch Elves are not worth 120. Like, in 2nd edition, I would have totally said they are, but not anymore.
Yeah, I think the way to change Daughters of Cain is to, because they're totally reliant on their 2 big anvils, which are Gotrek and Marathi. I don't think you can make changes to Marathi at this point. It's far too late. They should have done it when the Battle Tome came out. We're probably going to see another errata to her spear that's going to gain or lose a point of rend depending on which season it is.
I think you might lose her command ability. Like, just if they make that command ability once per game, I think it'll go a long way in fixing that faction.
I'd be down with that. But I mean, her role as an anvil for the army, because everything else is super fragile and just falls over if it gets targeted, kind of like Slaanesh.
Well, that's the thing, right? The thing is, like, it's a combination. Like, you can build an anvil list with Marathi, and that's totally fine. There is a player, I can't remember his name. I've met him during LVO. He's currently called Chump Hammer on the TGA. He builds these alternate no Marathi lists that do really, really well. The problem is Marathi's command ability is so game warping to be used over 5 turns that you cannot help yourself but take it. If you change that to once per game, those other playstyles open up, in my opinion.
Do other heroes in the army have Marathi's ability? Like, does one of the smaller heroes
for fighting, not for shooting?
Well, what about if they gave a once per game shooting ability to that hero? So Marathi can still do it every turn.
If to the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron of Blood, I would think she would see play.
Or one of the Malusai heroes, because the only stuff that shoots is the other Malusai. So if a Malusai hero got it, that would make sense. So Marathi, I think in that paradigm, you could jack her points up, and then you could say, well, you could take this cheaper hero if you wanted just to double tap your snakes, and then you could bring a lot more other stuff. So you don't have to rely on Marathi entirely.
Well, so if you read the book, it's actually balanced around that very concept. When you take Marathi, you have to go all in on Marathi and her force multiplier. You don't actually take a lot of the trinkets and baubles from your book.
Mm-hmm.
When you drop Marathi and you start taking your cauldrons, your hags, your Medusae, your Malusais, or whatever, that's when a lot of the tricks in the book open up. So if they just addressed her, bow snakes and her in maybe points, and then remove that command ability, suddenly you have a choice. Do I want to run a big monster anvil Daughters of Cain army, or do I want to run lots of tricks Daughters of Cain army?
They need more choice, for sure. That's what they need. More than anything else, that army needs choice, and the second edition Battle Tome did not give it to them. It just swapped them from Witch Elves to Malusai. Just that quick switch, and that's it. And that's not enough. Like, you can't just have an army that's Marathian, whatever flavor of the month unit. That's not a good faction.
Yep.
If they changed it to once per game shooting, that would be okay. If they just jacked her points up and gave the once per game shooting to another unit, because I don't think Malusai aren't as oppressive as Sentinels. That's always the gold standard, right? Oh, this unit's bad, but it's not as bad as Sentinels. But that's the standard now, apparently. And I think they just need a point increase on the bow snakes and just something to
just decrease the points on melee across the board.
Not too much, because I don't want to go back to the witch spam.
It's like a 10 point adjustment. Like, it could just be like 10, 20.
Yeah, little bits here and there.
Yeah.
Gotrek is a whole other issue, right? That guy's got to change.
435. That's insane.
He's like god level power and durability, and for 435, that's insane. He needs to be at least 500 points, at least, probably more. Because every army,
550, 580.
Yeah, he's nuts. The other Grand Alliances don't have an equivalent to this. Like, Destruction doesn't have a Gotrek that they can put in every list. It's so nuts.
And the thing is, like, in 3 battle plan objectives, it's like, okay, great. So he'll basically tank an objective all by himself. Like,
I would even be okay if Gotrek just wasn't playable in match play. Oh, Jack Geiger in chat. Yeah, he needs to go. Just don't make him playable. Make him a narrative-only character, because his rules are so insane. They completely warp the meta. I guess it creates a bigger discussion about abilities that reduce damage right now are incredibly strong. And I'm not just saying that because we play Stormcast and we love our 3 damage weapons. But how do you design a game where things like Gotrek and Coalesced, and I guess Daughters of Cain, if they ever start using that incantation, where they can reduce your weapon damage by 1. It's either a completely useless effect, or it is the best defensive ability in the game that's always active that can't be stopped, right? Like, Gotrek dies to 10 protectors, but he tanks 4 fulminators for the entire game. They cost almost the same amount of points. It's such a weird dichotomy. I think that kind of ability needs to be changed. It needs to be standardized across the board to more like, maybe they just get like a 5-up ward when they're fighting against something multi-damage. Because
the thing is, they approached it well. Like, he can't be teleported. He can't do anything fancy with him. He's a 4-inch moving hero. That's fine. I just think, like, the points are a little whack, because if you put him in an order army that can just afford to take tons of units elsewhere, can afford that god tech, because like Stormcast can't afford god tech, but Daughters of Cain, sure.
Seraphon,
absolutely. I know Deepkin will take him all day, because they even have an enclave that gives him Tides of Death, which is like, okay, great.
Yeah, so, I think points are the issue with Gotrek. I was going off on a tangent about like damage reduction effects. That's not a necessarily Gotrek issue. That's more Coalesced and what other units do that right now? Just Coalesced is the main one. They're popular, so. And I say that as a Seraphon player, right? In 2nd edition, I hated that ability because all I faced was Witch Elves and Bow Snakes and other things that did 1 damage. In 2nd edition, the Coalesced ability just wasn't that good. But now with Stormcast, Ironjaws, everything doing 2 or 3 damage, it's like that's the most insane ability in the game. And I don't like abilities that are that swingy, that are that impactful on a matchup, just passively, no gameplay around it. It's either completely useless or insanely strong, and I don't like it. So, yeah. So Daughters of Cain, nerf Gotrek, right? Just raises points. Buff other things in the army and give them more variety, because I want to see the bow snakes cost a little bit more, just so that there's some more parity across the board with other long range shooting units, and they're very strong, and other things should cost less. I think that's pretty much what we should see with the Daughters of Cain. I want them to have more options. I don't want Marathi to be in every single Daughters of Cain list for the rest of time.
Yep,
it's frustrating. Tzeentch is kind of on here, but it's really Archaon, right? Like, if you see a Tzeentch list without Archaon, it's like, what are you doing, right?
Yeah. Like, I think the only thing that needs to happen is pinks need to go up, the Zangor stuff needs to come down, Archaon needs to be above 900. Not Nagash levels, but at least 900.
Get rid of reroll saves. If you cut it from every other ability in the game,
just nuke it. Unless it's an artifact or something that you have to like actually spend resources on, like. It's just free for them. It's just stupid.
There's no counterplay at all. You can snipe the hero, sure, but good luck. He's going to be really far behind because the ability has a good range on it. It's not like you have to be wholly within 3 inches or something, right? So, yeah, get rid of the saves and small point bumps to Archaon, and then Pink Horror, big point bump to Pink Horror. It's like huge point bump. They should 50 wounds. I would say
guard, like they need to go up like 45. Yeah,
at least. It wouldn't even be crazy to put them at 280. Like 50 wounds, man, that's so much damage. Most units in the game can't do that in one round, and then you start reviving them, which just gets crazy.
Actually, you can't.
You can't revive the pinks until other things, but you can eventually start.
Rings, yeah.
Yeah, there are ways to, because the brimstones can get revived, and there's things. If they get, fun fact, if they get instantly killed, like if you eat them with a Stardrake, you can revive the pink horrors.
Yes.
Which is weird.
I will say though, like having faced because my friend was running 10 pinks, like with annihilators, didn't feel that bad. 2s and 2s, like doing 24-27 damage each battle.
Stormcast are in a very privileged position because we have units that will just delete something every time we look at it. We have trouble getting there. We have to get our unit there, but once it's there, it's going to delete whatever it hits. Like 6 Grand Hammers, 4 Fulminators, let's say even 4 Drakes sometimes. Yeah, long strikes. Whatever we pick to die will die, and that very heavily benefits us in a low model count, high priority target meta like what we're facing now. If it ever shifts to like Seraphon are a hard matchup for us because they have so many things we want to kill, right? Like we can spend a Thunderbolt Volley killing a Skink Priest, but that was only 4 wounds. Was that worth it?
Yep.
So if we ever shift to a meta where there's high target saturation, let's say, Stormcast are going to start to struggle for sure. But Tzeentch is not that. Tzeentch is Pink Horrors and Archaon, and we are favored in that matchup, but I just don't like these units. Especially Archaon. It's just that much durability, man.
It needs to go up,
All right.
Before we go into core battalions here, and other core rules, Crypt Shadow mentioned it a little earlier in the chat, and something that's been discussed in the Discord as well is Kragnos getting a 5-up ward. Did we want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, let's talk about the rumors, right? Because there's been a lot of rumors. Probably shouldn't say who's been spreading them. We don't have their permission to do that, so let's keep that confidential for now. As confidential as it, going into our Discord and finding the channel. It's public, so. But anyway, there's been some rumors. I've heard rumors that Pink Horrors are going up in points, up to 250-ish. I've heard Maw Crushers are going up by 70. I've heard Pigs are going up by about 30. The Gorgruntas, I mean. I've heard that Kragnos is getting a 5-up ward and counts as 20 models on objectives, which still doesn't make him worthwhile to me, personally.
No, it does.
You think so?
We play tested him as that, and I think that'll go a long way in making him playable. I don't know if Ironjaws will take it, because Ironjaws is kind of like us. They're pretty elite in that sense. It really helps out armies like Ogres, Gits, Bone Splitters. I think they will take him.
Okay. Anything that props those factions up, I'm okay with that, for sure. Mm-hmm. Ironjaws doesn't need it. They don't need buffs right now.
They've got it. No, I mean, he doesn't have any keywords. He's just going to be an incredibly efficient OPSEC model beatstick. And other like Bone Splitters just don't have good hammers outside of their Shaman doing the stair thing at 12 inches. So I think they will use him. Gits will definitely use him. Ogres will use him. But Ironjaws, no. Cruel Boys, I could see using him if somebody's building like a big yellow list and all they want is Bolt Boys and Kragnos.
Yeah, he becomes like the Marathi for that army where he just tanks there.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah. I like that change. I think even if because he has a 2-up save, even if they gave him like a 5-up mortal wound save, I think would go a long way. I think that's his biggest problem. It's like, and it's the same problem that our dragons have. Like we just don't. The meta is too lethal.
I think Kragnos' biggest problem is his speed. Frankly, if he can charge, oh baby, you are having a fantastic game if you charge with Kragnos. Doesn't matter what you charge.
But it does matter what you charge on a little bit, because if your opponent is decent at screening, then Kragnos is kind of wasted.
Yeah, he's not going to wipe out screens. That's a problem Destruction has in general, is that you have to wipe out the screens and then you need to push in past them, and Destruction just generally doesn't do that very well. That's why I think if they nerf Ironjaws, I think Big Wog is going to take off in popularity, using Bolt Boys, Kragnos, and probably some speed in there, maybe a Maw Crusher alongside as a double hammer kind of thing. tear down screens and then charge in. That's the biggest weakness of Ironjawz. They can't do that reliably right now, especially with Hunters of the Heartland around. So, yeah, we'll see where that develops.
So increasing the durability there helps, right? Because he only moves 10, but so he doesn't get anywhere in time before he dies to shooting or something that charges him. So increasing his durability, I think, is pretty good.
It does. But the fact that he only moves 10, he can't retreat and charge. He just gets stuck in bad combats. He does.
The thing is, he's killing most things in combat. Like, it's not that he can't kill anything. It's just that he doesn't survive enough to make it there. And if he was going up against Gargants, which he's meant to kill in a sense, he still doesn't count as anything. So you're spending 700 points on something that can't compete on objectives.
I think you're right that durability could fix him. It's not the way I would like to fix him personally. Like, especially the 20 models on objective thing. Like, I don't know what that's for. He's wiping out everything he hits in melee, right? So, like, what is that for? Just, okay, sure.
I don't know. Gargants, maybe.
He doesn't. And another thing is, the model doesn't look like it should be worth 20 models on an objective. Gargants do. Gargants are huge. But Kragnos is like this tiny little guy, relatively, on a big rock.
I don't know, man. If you ask me, he's not even a destruction model. It's a basic chaos.
Yeah.
So I don't know about, yeah.
Well, you know, Stormcast, not Stormcast, but I guess Sigmar wiped out all the Beasts of Chaos that were in Azir, and all the Dragon Ogres were there, and Sigmar just came and stole all their land. It's like, hey, this is mine now, get out. So there's theories that those people, the exiles from Azir, are the progenitor race of Kragnos, or the descendants, I guess, of Kragnos, based on the timeline. Yeah. Well, so we'll see. That's an interesting connection. Maybe it was on purpose. There's always the theory that they designed a cool Beast of Chaos model, and then last minute they decided, nope, we need destruction, so we will shoehorn this in as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
What other rumors have we heard? Fulminators and Raptors are going up in points. I heard that rumor. Don't know how much. 20 points is what I would guess if they are going up. I don't think they should. Maybe they should. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Fulminators, I think, should. I don't think they should be below Retributors. I mean, don't get me wrong. Retributors should come down, but I don't think they should be 230. They should be at least 240, in my opinion. 245.
I think that's... Yeah, there's some units in Stormcast that are like, okay, these are doing a little bit better from an internal perspective, but all of that seems constrained by how ridiculously expensive our heroes are.
Yeah. I mean, that's why, like, when we discussed the winter wish listing list video, whatever, one of my main complaints was I think a lot of our heroes just need a flat, like, 15, 20 point decrease across the board.
Yeah, if they do that and they increase the cost of our hammers and our list, like, looking at our lists, they don't seem that strong, like overpoweringly strong. They have some gimmicks to them, like Thunderbolt Volley, that's really strong, but it's not like Stormcast are winning 5-0 across the board everywhere. We're still being checked. We're still being figured out. So our lists, our armies are not that strong, but specific units feel like they're overperforming, right? And the risk there is that eventually people are like, okay, well, I'm going to stop bringing these support heroes, and I'm just going to bring more of these units that are doing the good thing that I care about. Because why would I spend 145 points on a second Relictor when I could just pay 230 for more Fulminators that are actually going to do something real instead of supporting a unit that's doing something real? And that's the risk. So I think our heroes need to come down, and if that happens and long strikes and fulminators go up, that's fine because our list would more or less stay the same, but it would prevent long-term spam and abuse situations. Because our balanced, like, we make pretty balanced lists. We have a good mix of melee and shooting and support heroes, and they feel fine. They don't feel like we have too much stuff going on. We're biased, obviously, but I play other armies too, so I see it. Sometimes I'm playing Seraphon, and I'm like, I have a lot of units. I can do a lot of stuff.
For Raptors, like, if they change Thunderbolt Volley to be Unleash Thy Hatred, but for Raptors, then the point shouldn't go up. If they keep Thunderbolt Volley the same, 10-point increase, I wouldn't be mad about it.
If it's small,
I still take them.
Yeah.
I'd still take them.
We'll see. I would definitely still take them. If our support heroes went down, I'd love that, really. It's so hard to pick any hero except Relictor and Cantor and Parentant when you need it. Like, our heroes suck. They're so bad.
I really want the Knight Relictor to go down. Honestly, the Lord Relictor's 2-up didn't really come that often because I was taking High Priest on him. Like, I want to take the Knight Relictor at 120 and have 3-up rerollable translocation. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I'd do that. If he was a 115, 120, I would do that instead of a Lord Relictor. Just because that 20 points goes a long way. It's the difference between using concussors and fulminators. It's big for us, so I'd like that. And other rumors. I heard a rumor that Lumineth Foxes are no longer going to be able to retreat in the shooting phase, and that sounds too good to be true because that's exactly what I want. So obviously that's not going to happen, because why would anything good happen?
I think that's people's biggest complaint about it, is that you can't catch them.
Yeah, their damage is fine for their points and what the model looks like. Everything makes sense. They're super fast. It's just the fact that you cannot catch them on your own turn, which is just the worst play experience.
If it was just like each Lumineth Fox can free redeploy, like even that would be less oppressive. They get to move 12, which means they're automatically out of your charge range, which is like insane.
Which is after you move too, which is so dumb because you can't even move a second unit into position after they do that ability.
Yeah, if it was just like, oh, you can issue, like a Lumineth Fox can issue redeploy itself without it being issued. Okay, like roll a dice, see how far you get. Like,
yeah, the chat's saying they should be hard to catch but not uncatchable. Totally agreed. Right now they're uncatchable. They should be mobile. They should be skirmishers. Right now they are uncatchable by some armies, and that's just awful.
Yeah.
Any other rumors you guys heard?
No. I mean, I just want Battle Regiment going. I don't think I heard any rumors about that, but I want it to go away.
Me too, man. That's part of our bigger conversation that we're having about Alpha Strikes just being too potent, is that the reliability of putting your Alpha Strike list into a 1-drop battalion, and almost in every game, unless you're playing another Battle Regiment, you get to decide who goes first. That's such a strong ability, and that's being enabled by the Battle Regiment, and I don't like that. I think if an army has a 1-drop list, that's cool. It's a thing that army does, but the fact that everybody can do it is really silly.
No, that's exactly what you're saying. It creates a race to the bottom. Everyone just wants to make their best version of a 1-drop list now.
Yeah, because sometimes you'll make a list and you'll think, oh, well, how can I improve my matchup against an army that's running 2 battle regiments and I'm running 9 drops, let's say, to get more value out of an Arcane Tome on an extra hero. It's like, well, I could just go 1-drop and then I guarantee the first turn, or I force them to go first, and that has a higher success rate than any artifact that I could bring. There's no choice anymore. Of course you're going to go Battle Regiment. So it is creating a race to the bottom, like you said, where eventually, if you can't get 1-drop, you will just get Alpha Striked, because that's what the game is devolving into.
Yeah.
Or you will be forced to go first, and then your opponent double turns you and wins.
Mm-hmm.
The game will be determined. No. We're regressing. In 2nd edition, you knew who was going to win at the top of round 2 based on the priority roll. In 3rd edition, we're trending towards a point where you're going to know who wins based on the list. Who has the Battle Regiment? Who doesn't? Yeah. Who wins the coin toss? It's getting to that point. We're not there yet. Yep. I can say gladly we're not there yet. But if there is more power creep in this game, we will be there, as long as Battle Regiment and as long as guaranteeing who or getting to choose who goes first exists. I think it should be a roll-off, and I think whoever wins the roll-off shouldn't have the choice. You should just have to go first.
Yeah, like 40k. Yeah, just go first.
Yeah. Amulet of Destiny, rumor has it's going to be a 6-up board instead. I'm fine with that. 4-up board against mortals would be even better. I would love that even more, because that's actually cool. Instead of just making things worse, you make things cooler. In my opinion, that's a better way to go. But we're all pretty sick of Amulet of Destiny. As soon as I saw the 3rd edition rulebook, James, I remember we were at Torchlight, and I was like, seriously? A 5-up board? Just anybody can take it? What?
Yeah. Honestly, like I'm surprised they didn't put a wound limitation on it, because like we talk about, scalability is a problem. Like, nobody cares if it's on like an 8 wound or 7 wound Imperator, but people care when it's on an 18 wound Maw Crusher that keeps gaining wounds, or like a 35 wound Gargant.
Yeah, I saw somebody in the chat mention earlier that it should be limited to sub-commanders.
Yes,
that's an option.
That would
It could also just be one of those like wacky artifacts where if you roll a 1 with it, you can't use it anymore for the rest of the game. I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah.
But the Amulet of Destiny, on top of how durable units are getting right now, and I know we're talking about Alpha Strikes and how they're just, it's not a situation where we're tabling opponents turn 1. It's a situation where you are dealing crippling damage to the point that no strategy is possible for your opponent to win the game. Right, that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about 40k where you shoot people off the board turn 1 and there's like 3 models left. No, it's like you're pinned, your key units are dead. The game's pretty much determined. Right, that's what we're talking about here. So in that perspective, it makes sense that everybody's using really, really tough, durable defensive stuff. And Amulet of Destiny is just nuts in that mentality. When you want to stack as many save bonuses on something and then give it a 5-up ward as well, it's getting silly. So that leads into save stacking as the last point here, which is it's a big topic right now in the Age of Sigmar community. A lot of people are suggesting just blanket +1 save ever, and then you count rend after that, which I'm not a fan of that personally. I think Mystic Shield is really cool. I think All Out Defense are really cool. I think stacking them even together is really cool because it's limited to one unit, and there's cost and counterplay to both of those. Right, you can stop enemies from using all-out defense if you use Geminids. I'm sure there's going to be some abilities down the road that also stop command abilities. You can unbind Mystic Shield. Mystic Shield has a cost. You have to cast a spell that's not guaranteed. Your opponent can unbind it. You can't cast another spell if you cast Mystic Shield. The unit has to be in range. You have to have a wizard. There's all these costs associated with that. All-out defense, I think, is cool too. It's reactive. It's fun to use it. Offensively and defensively. It's one of the best things about 3rd edition, frankly, is that you can have a chance to say, I'm going to slightly tilt the dice in my favor based on what you're doing.
And hey guys, do you remember all those articles leading up to 3rd edition where they were talking about all-out defense being the best thing ever?
Oh, this unit's so good, and you can use all-out attack on it to give it +1 hit. Whoa!
Like Ren's gonna go up this edition. Like we're just seeing like the tip of the iceberg for 9th edition, right? And if they've decided to give a lot of things -2, -3, and so on, I don't have a problem with all-out defense because like we're gonna see rend and damage go up.
I don't think rend will go up. I think mortal wounds will go up. I think that's what we're more likely to see because it makes sense for Stormcast and Maw Crushes, for example, these big weapons to have Rend 2. I don't think we're going to start going into a Rend-heavy meta. I think we're going to see a lot more Mortal Wounds going forward, though.
You can see the argument for that.
Yeah, it just seems like a lot more armies are more suited to just cutting through your armor entirely through poisons or magic or some nonsense. And we just want to fight fair. We just want to stack armor. So I don't like the idea of preventing armor stacking because I think it's good from not even just at the tournament level, but just in regular games. It feels good to stack saves and force your opponent to hit the thing that you want to do. That's strategy, right? That's fun. For me, the issue is where allegiance abilities from armies come into play with that. If you have a very easy access to another +1 save on top of all-out defense and Mystic Shield, that can be a problem, especially if it's... I'm not saying Sylvaneth are a problem right now, but the Tree Lord Ancient, I believe, has a command ability where everything around him gets +1 save, right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And like the best example I can come up with is a Lord Castellan. Like we pay 155 points for a +1 save.
That's it. That's all he does.
No, but think about this.
Yeah.
There's a thing called the Chaos Sorcerer Lord for 115, which is basically a Lord Castellan with a free Arcane Tome on him.
Yeah. There should be higher cost. So I'm fine, again, to clarify my position, I'm fine with Mystic Shield, I'm fine with all defense. It's everything else on top of it that needs to be careful, because these two things are cool and should be preserved. Everything else needs to be very carefully implemented and designed. So where do we start making, because obviously the game's too defensive. It's not fun to fight something that ignores all rend forever just because you stacked a bunch of save buffs on it. That's too far. For me, I think what we should do is get rid of their finest hour as a save bonus. I think that ability needs to be changed to maybe a 6-up or a 5-up ward instead, because stacking saves, like the more saves you stack, the more effective health you gain. It's not linear, right? If you're on a 2-up and you ignore Rend 2, you're going to be a lot better off than if you were just on a 4-up. Like it more than doubles. The amount of damage needed to kill you increases non-linearly. So, and what that's going to devolve into is just mortal wound spam. So their finest hour to me seems like the candidate to get cut or changed because the other ones are cool. They have counterplay. You can't stop their finest hour. There is a cost to it because you have to declare it at the start of the hero phase and you have to give up other heroic actions, but that's not really that much of a cost because who the heck cares about the other command abilities? Or the heroic actions, I mean. Like, they're not nearly as impactful as giving Archaon +1 save or Kairos +1 save if you think they're going to try to snipe him. So, a 5-up ward and +1 to wound, that seems like a good finest hour to me. And it's more widely applicable. Like it does something against mortal wounds, which their finest hour doesn't. And you'd think if this hero is heroically inspired and they're charging off to battle, then a 5-up ward kind of makes more sense. They might have like some divine protection. Think of one of our Stormcast heroes gets like blessed by Sigmar because it's his finest hour, and now magic is just bouncing off him. Like it seems cooler too. Maybe 5-up's too strong, maybe a 6-up, I don't know. But +1 save is too much. It leads into save stacking becoming abusive.
Thing is, though, if they change that, like, I feel like Gargants, the problem isn't really solved with Gargants, because, like, they don't like generating CP anyway. They just go, like, Amulet and then Finest Hour. I feel like you don't want to give Gargants access to a 5-up ward.
Well, if let's say...
Actually, like, Vince's solution for this, which was, like, unless your save characteristic is a 2-up on your War Scroll, your save can never be better than a 3.
My problem with that is that it makes sense for some factions to have a 2-up save through buffs. Sylvaneth, Stormcast, Slaves to Darkness, these kind of like you look at these units and you're like, oh, it makes sense for them to have really, really tough armor, right? Like really, really thick trees or Stormcast armor or Slaves to Darkness with heavy armor and shields. You look at them and you say, okay, yeah, it makes sense for that army to have a 2+ save if they stack buffs for it. So I don't want to deprive those armies of that, and it would become really clunky to start introducing that rule into every single battle tome. So I like that as an across-the-board solution, but it has problems that would have to get addressed. And I think cutting their finest hour is cleaner. It has a better effect in terms of scalability because their finest hour is way stronger on a 3+ save Gargant or Archaon or something than it would be on a 5-up save Skink Priest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it fixes the scalability problem, and I think it would also open the door for more design space for heroic actions in general, because we don't have enough. It's like, are you using their finest hour? No? Okay, generate a command point.
Yeah.
They're just not that interesting. So I think nerfing their finest hour, ironically, is the way to make heroic actions more interesting, at least long term. Right now, they're not that interesting, and they could be better.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at, and hopefully they very carefully balance save stacking going forward. We got Stormcast out the gate. They look like a faction that should stack saves. I don't want that to go away. I want them to have access to that ability without becoming overpowered. And if we have to pay more points for it, that's fine. Like our units are costed at a 3-up save. That's fine. I don't want a situation where they change save stacking and all of a sudden Stormcast start getting cheaper and cheaper, and we just have more bodies on the table. We're supposed to be an elite faction. Let's stay that way. We don't need to have more bodies.
Agreed.
So that's our hopes. Realistically, what do we expect to actually get from the Winter FAQ? Last year we got nothing. Like pretty much nothing. They didn't.
Just expecting points and maybe like a few clarifications. I know like they'll address Sentinels because we're getting to the point where like most content creators are talking about wanting to fix Sentinels. They'll do something to Gargants. They'll be like raise the points enough to where Gargants can't bring 4 megas to a field anymore. Yeah, they'll raise the points on all the shooters for sure. We've heard rumors of a new Stormdrake Guard War Scroll, so we'll see what's in there. It could be anything. Mm-hmm. They'll raise the points on Archaon, I think, because he's been in the meta long enough. But yeah, realistically, we're just looking at lots of point changes, and then maybe like half the things that we request on the War Scroll changes. Maybe we'll get like half or like a quarter of those.
Maybe we'll get an actual FAQ this time.
Yeah.
There's so many things that are outstanding. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Can Bastion do anything? How do any of his abilities work? Like I think we legit have questions about every single one of his abilities, right?
Oh, can he issue like a holy command anywhere?
Can he issue a holy command anywhere? Can he heal off abilities because attacks are not properly defined? Can he put units in and out of Scions with his redeployment ability? Does the Thunderborn, his mortal wound thing, does that count as an attack for the purposes of healing him?
Yeah.
None of this stuff is actually in the rules. Like we need answers on this, and yeah, it would be nice to have just one answer would be good. Would be a good start. Yeah. See what the chat is talking about here. Would love to see a ward save.
Shows up.
Yeah. Shout out to Joel McGrath. Great player down in Australia. Let's see here. Modnar says, would love to see a ward save for Krondus and Karazai. Just dreaming a bit. Yeah, man, that would be sick.
Even if it's just mortal wounds, like Ignax's scales, they are the sons of like something like that. Like if it's just 5 mortal wound save, I'll take it.
I'm just gonna lore bomb you here. Ignax is not Dracothian.
Oh, is he not?
Two different dragons. Ignax is the Fire Slayer. No, that's Volcatrix. Ignax was another god beast. That's not Dracothian. Dracothian and Ignax are not the same thing.
Okay. Yeah. Whatever. Give them like a 5 upwards just against mortal wounds, because I feel like with how lethal the game is, like it's not good enough.
Let's see here. Daniel Gomez wants points, sentinels, and gargants would be the biggest thing for me. I really hope they just continue in books going forward, removing rerolling. Yeah, man. Rerolling is like, it's cool because it increases granularity. Because you're on a D6 system, you get 1 of 6 results, and then you can modify it by +1. So you have like a 16 to 17% intervals. And what's cool about rerolling is that it increases the granularity. Because let's say you have a 5 up, and then you have like, well, you can reroll 1s, 2s, 3s, or 4s, or reroll all of them, or reroll half of them, right? More and more granularity. But the problem with rerolling in a game like Age of Sigmar is that it just eats too much time. It just takes so friggin' long to resolve everything when everything rerolls everything.
Yep.
Rerolling key things is fine, right? Rerolling a charge is really cool, especially because you can only do it once per turn, right? Mm-hmm. That's fine. But rerolling all hits, rerolling all wounds, rerolling all saves, the game becomes too reliable. It needs to be a dice game. So totally on board with just getting more rerolls gone out of the game.
Yeah, quite frankly, I was going to say I don't really miss Knight Azeroth that much in his Lantern ability.
I do.
As much as I thought I would.
I do so bad.
Obviously, it would be fantastic.
Why it doesn't need to be there in an age of all-out attack, because our army hits on 2s most of the time anyway.
Yeah.
I liked it. It was so flavorful and so appropriate. I liked it so much. Rest in peace, Azeroth.
Change your dice. Get new dice.
I think after one of our first games together, James, you took your dice that were not rolling well for you, and you literally just threw them in the trash beside you.
It was the first set of charge rolls on Annihilators for a 7-inch rerollable, and I rolled double Snake Eyes. So yeah, they deserve to go into the garbage.
By the way, if anyone has the Stormcast dice from 2nd edition, the one that has like the hammer and the 2 comments on them, not the current one, the current dice are terrible. If anyone has them, they're really good. For me, anyway.
Oh, okay. All right. Is this your secret way of telling us you loaded your dice?
I don't know, man. They just like every time I don't think I failed a single 7-inch charge throughout, like, I would say 15 turns of dropping Annihilators.
Lucky 7s, man. Yeah. 7s across the board.
Yeah.
So realistically, what I expect, Raptors and Fulminators go up, and that's it for Stormcast. If the rumor of a new War Scroll for Dragons is true, we might get that. But I'm very not hopeful that we're going to get positive changes out of the review, even though we're currently not even a top-tier army. I think we're sitting at like 45% win rate based on stats that I've seen. So we're not a threat in the meta by any means. People are just complaining. So I'm cynical enough to admit that they're probably just going to respond to the complaining and make unnecessary changes, let's say. And it could be the case that they're making them preemptively. Like maybe people will learn the battle tome and our win rate tracks up and up and up. And then turns out these changes were totally justified because instead of going up to 48%, we went up to 46%. And then cool, balance, right? But if they're doing updates every 3 months, let's see where it all shakes out. Why not? Why preemptively nerf something if you're doing an update every 3 months?
All right. Well, I think we covered all.
That's it. That's it for the podcast. So let's talk about upcoming stuff. I am happy to announce that we have a new series. I think I announced that before, but our first episode of How to Counter Everything is about Be'lakor and the Legion of the First Prince, because I hate Be'lakor. I want to kill him. So, no, it's actually the reasons I decided to do that one instead of others is because it's it's a really hard army to figure out. There's so many unique rule interactions between Kairos and Be'lakor and the Khorne Blood Prince and the Pink Horrors. I think it's really useful. I don't see them making any changes to it anytime soon because they don't have a battle tome. All their rules are spread out all over the place. And unless Plague Bearers suddenly become the new hotness, I think the core of the Legion of the First Prince list is more or less going to stay the same in terms of rules. So I think getting a video out about it, explaining how all these abilities interact, what weaknesses you can expose in it, and what kind of units would go really well into that, I think that's a really useful thing to put out right now. I thought about doing it about Lumineth, but God knows what's going to change in the winter update. So Be'lakor, we got our sights set on you. You are going down, my dude. Next after that probably will be Stormcast as Coalition units in Cities of Sigmar. This is one I've been planning for a little while. I want to make it a proper Stormkeep video, which means we're going to be putting in lists, we're going to be talking about it. I'm not an expert on Cities of Sigmar by any means, so I still have to do a bit more research about what exactly those kinds of armies look like. But I am very excited to talk about Stormcast combos in those. And again, waiting for the winter update because everything's up in the air. So Living City Fulminators look really good, I can tell you that much, but there's a lot more stuff in Cities of Sigmar that I'm just pretty pumped to talk about. Honestly, I'm thinking I might start a Cities of Sigmar army. Just because I have like half the points for it already.
Yeah. Wait for the Dawnbringer Crusade, but yeah.
We are definitely going to do another tier list update video after the winter 2021 update, and that one won't be as long as our other one, which was a lot of discussion based on erratas. This one, we know what the units do. It's going to be point changes. There's probably not going to be that much to talk about. Raptors will still be good. Fulminators will still be good. Unless they like heavily errata their damage. I don't think they're going to do that. So if just points go up, it's not going to be a huge long video. It's just going to be a short little thing like, hey, here's where we're at. This is what we think is going to happen for the next 3 months. That's the silver lining of 3 months updates. We get to keep making tier list videos. And those are fun. So we get to keep doing them. We also want to do another Lords of the Storm after the winter 2021 update. Lords of the Storm is our series where we make lists and we talk about them. Sometimes they are tournament crusher lists, and sometimes we put 15 Judicators in front of 15 Protectors in a ring around them. So, yeah.
Because cohesion.
Because we can. Nobody. So we're going to do another one of those. We are going to involve our Discord server with that again. Haven't figured out exactly how we want to do that yet because we don't want to do a gimmick. We want to focus on where the army is at after the update. So the theme will be just building Stormcast lists. But we'll see if we can throw a twist into it still. James, you want to take it away for Hobby Hangouts?
Yeah, so Hobby Hangouts. I have to take the blame on this one. Life's been getting a little bit in the way, or my personal life's been getting a little in the way the past couple weeks. But we're going back full swing. Wednesday nights for the North American crowd, Saturday mornings for us in North America for the European crowd, and Saturday evenings, Sunday, I think it's afternoon for the Aussie crowd. Weekly basis, come hang out with the hosts and the community. Have fun, paint, watch stuff, whatever we got going on. One thing I did want to mention that I don't see on the slides is, do we want to sort of hint at what we're going to be doing with Knight Relictor there, Paul?
Yeah, you want to announce it?
Yeah, so coming in the new year, we're going to actually start doing paint contests. We'll probably announce it relatively soon, but first one is going to be Knight Relictor.
Yep. We are going to paint up Knight Relictors as a team, and we're going to get you guys to do the same.
Yep.
And then we'll judge it, and the winner will get a prize.
Something.
Something. You will get something that isn't just another thumbs up like that from me. It'll be something of value.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to
that. Yeah. So if you guys feel like you want to contribute, there's our Patreon. I don't want to shill it too much, but I do want to mention that we're adding a new thing for Justicar tier supporters, which is tournament reports from us. So we're going to be writing our thoughts. So we go into a lot more detail than what we talked about on this live stream here, and we add photos and everything, and hopefully it's useful. So consider dropping us a couple bucks, and you can get access to those tournament reports. And one last thing. we're doing another live stream, How to Build a Stormcast Army, on December 17th. So that's 2 Fridays from now at 8 p.m. Eastern, featuring the AOS coach. He's going to be our first night guest star on the podcast. So we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one.
And that's it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
For showing up.
Shout out to the chat. You guys made this a lot more fun.
Yeah.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Good night.